In an era where technology was barely developed, the appearance of a water wheel shocked everyone. Nobody could understand how it worked, and they could only stare at it in silence. And the one who brought that change? Well, it was actually just a young boy carrying modern knowledge inside his head. His goal was simple. He just wanted to save his family. Everything started in the year 513 of the Kair calendar, when an old bearded man announced the execution of Baron Solis Takhir, the former ruler of Estol territory. Surprisingly, the execution itself was based on an agreement personally made by Takhir. At the execution platform, blood dripped down from Takhir's head. His vision was blurry, his entire body hurt, and his mind could barely keep up with what was happening. For a moment, he wondered who the man giving the speech even was. Then he realized something. He was standing at the central plaza of Est, and the person being executed was him. Only then did he notice the ropes binding his body to the wooden stake and the pile of firewood beneath his feet. When Takhir looked toward the crowd, the atmosphere felt hostile enough for someone to throw stones at him at any second. But honestly, he couldn't blame them. Estol was once a blessed land with fertile soil and a great ruler, a peaceful territory protected and developed for over 10 years by his parents. But everything collapsed when Takhir was 10 years old. First came the flood, then war broke out, taking the life of his older brother, the warrior everyone had high hopes for. Before the territory could recover, an epidemic killed the rest of his family, along with many servants of the Solis household, and in the end, Takhir was left alone, a lord who lacked almost everything. But the disasters still didn't stop. Famine pushed the territory to the brink of collapse, and soon after that, a neighboring empire invaded the weakened land. After being completely defeated, Takhir made a final agreement. In exchange for sparing the lives of the commoners and protecting their land, he offered up his own life along with the little wealth he had left. To him, if his death could bring peace back to everyone, then that alone was enough. Then the execution began. The firewood beneath him was set ablaze. As Takhir quietly accepted his death, someone suddenly called out his name. A hooded girl pushed through the crowd in panic. The moment he saw her, Takhir felt relieved knowing she had safely escaped the mansion after the attack. But before Anne could reach him, the guards stopped her. Her eyes widened before she collapsed helplessly to the ground. Takhir softly told her not to do this. But Anne continued crying as she revealed that she knew the truth all along. No matter what other people said about him, she knew Takhir had always cared deeply for his people. As Anne prayed for him, 3 more girls stepped forward. Mizali, Rose, and Claire. One after another, they spoke about everything Takhir had done for the territory. He worked tirelessly to restore the land, how he ignored sleep while rebuilding the villages, how he risked his own life during the epidemic, and how he stayed beside the people through every disaster. They remembered all of it. Takhir stared at them in shock. Even now, they were still crying for him, still praying for him. Honestly, it made him happy. A genuine smile slowly appeared on his exhausted face. He never realized he was loved that much. But when Takhir lifted his head again, his eyes widened. The entire crowd had fallen to their knees, praying for him with both hands clasped together. The people he thought hated him were praying for his safety. Before Takhir could even process what was happening, a circle of light suddenly appeared around his body. At the same time, thick smoke swallowed his vision, and in that moment, Takhir finally understood. This was the end of his life. His final thoughts were filled with gratitude and apology toward his people, because this was the only thing he could still do as their lord. And then, at the very end of his life, something strange flickers through his mind. a notification, a system message. It tells him that the required conditions to activate a skill have been met. He's been blessed with 3 things: bloodline magic, space-time magic, and the territory appraisal skill. Takhir's reaction? Pure frustration. Seriously? Right now? The notification keeps going, explaining that a lord's skill awakens based on the loyalty of his people, and that possessing such a skill defines one's worth as a noble. He wants to scream. He doesn't need this right now. And just like that, his life as Solis von Takhir comes to an end, or at least it should have. Soon after, a familiar scene appeared before him. The Baron Solis family records, the birth of the Baron's second son, Takhir. He can't move, he has no voice, and then it hits him, he's a baby, again. He pieces it together fast. During the execution, he activated his authority and reached for his bloodline magic. The result? A space-time transfer, which means he's been reborn, carrying the bloodline magic with him. And as if to confirm it, the thick Baron Solis family history book is sitting right there beside him. His tiny eyes light up. If this worked, he could see everyone again, his parents, his older brother. The emotion hits before he can stop it, and his baby body just starts crying. That's fine. He doesn't care. If he gets to see their faces again, it's worth it. Through the tears, a young woman scoops him up and holds him close, gently trying to soothe him. His mother. He remembers. She passed away at just 35 from an epidemic when he was 16, which means right now she's only about 19 years old. She looks at him crying and assumes he's hungry. She moves to feed him. Takhir goes very still. Feed him, as in breastfeeding. He shakes his tiny head with everything he has. He can't do this. He may look like a newborn, but mentally he's a man in his 50s. He resists. There's a small struggle. And then, predictably, baby instincts completely override his will. And he loses. Afterward, he sits with a strange feeling. Wait, 50s? That's not right. He was executed at 20, so why does he feel like an older man? And then the fragments start surfacing. A dark room, an office, a kitchen with a young black-haired woman, a crowded city street, a leave of absence form. Takhir couldn't understand any of it. Then, more memories appeared. The same woman collapsed before being rushed to a hospital, and a man doing construction work crumpled without warning. It all comes back. Everything finally connected. The helplessness, the desperate effort to convince his wife that everything would be okay. These are memories from before, from his life as Nishida Takahiro. His baby's body can't hold it together. The tears come again, and this time it's for Yuko, his wife. What happened to her after he died? She has no children, no relatives, no one left. The thought of her alone somewhere, it wrecks him completely. Then, his mother's hands reach out and pull him in close, and a young man appears beside her, gently running a hand through his hair. His father. Then, his older brother Darek leans in, pinches his cheek, and flashes him a huge grin. It's warm. It feels like home. The family he's missed for so long is right here, all around him. And then the dread creeps back in, because he knows exactly how this story ends for all of them. Is he really going to have to watch it all fall apart again? Lose everything all over again? No, not this time. He has weapons now that he didn't have before. The full historical knowledge of his life as Takhir, the modern knowledge from his life as Nishida. With both combined, he can rewrite the tragedy of House Baron Solis. He'll save his family. He'll awaken his authority again, reclaim the space-time transfer skill, and when it's all done, he'll go back to his first life, back to Yuko, who's waiting somewhere without even knowing it, and he'll build a new future with her. Sure, right now he's a baby, he can't do anything yet, but he can plan, and so, wrapped in his mother's arms, surrounded by the family he's determined to save, Takhir makes his decision. This time, the future is going to be different. Time skips forward. It's now year 496 of the Kair calendar, and Takhir is 3 years old, already buried in books, much to his mother's delight. She heads back to work and leaves him in the reading room, completely in his element. Ever since he could read and write, Takhir has been absorbing everything around him, and what he's pieced together about this world paints a pretty clear picture. The civilization level sits roughly at medieval Europe, just before the Industrial Revolution. The territory of Estall is governed by House Baron Solis, sitting out on the borderlands. Lots of undeveloped land, but rich, fertile soil. The mansion itself isn't anything extravagant. Solid, classic fantasy setting stuff. And yes, magic exists here. It's the mark of the ruling class, the nobles, which makes them objects of reverence and power. Two forces define what it means to be a feudal lord. First is authority. A territorial blessing that grows based on the prosperity of the land and the loyalty of its people, unlocking once a certain threshold is reached. Second is bloodline magic, a permanent hereditary skill that lets family members share the Lord's attributes. In Takhir's case, his reincarnation was made possible by bloodline magic, and the Baron Solis history that greeted him at birth was a gift from the authority's blessing. Armed with his memories, the historical records, and the Baron Solis archives, Takhir maps out 5 disasters destined to destroy his family. Year 503, the Org River floods, devastating the granary district and the city at its center. Year 506, the Empire cripples their forces and takes their older brother's life. Year 509, a plague wipes out 20% of the population, including his entire family. Year 512, a great famine starves or drives away another fifth of what's left. And year 513, the Empire's full invasion ends in defeat, execution, and the permanent erasure of the Solis bloodline. There's really no other way to say it. His family gets absolutely demolished, one catastrophe at a time. Takhir lies on the floor, holding his head, rolling back and forth, trying to figure out how to stop weather disasters and military invasions. The maids watching him think it's the most adorable thing they've ever seen. He sometimes falls asleep in that same pose, which sends his mother and the maids into a frenzy every single time. But the problem in front of him is anything but cute. He has roughly 5 years before the 503 flood hits, which means he needs to start fortifying the territory now. On top of that, he also needed information about the Griffonia Empire and its terrifying commander, General Weiss. Known as the Invincible General after he crushed Estall, almost nobody knew anything about him. Time keeps moving, but these disasters can still be stopped. Acting is the only option Takhir has. Or, at least, that's what he thought back then. 2 years later, year 498, and 5-year-old Takhir is in full panic mode. He tries to calm himself down and sort through everything. He's been so focused on the 5 major calamities that he almost missed the prequel disaster cycle running right before them. Year 499 brings a record harvest, which sounds great until you realize the oversupply crashes grain prices and cripples the regional economy. That economic collapse then triggers a total crop failure the following year. That failure fans the flames of conflict with the neighboring lords. Year 500 brings a volcanic eruption in a neighboring country, raining ash and drought down on Estall. By 501, that border conflict indirectly caused his brother's death. By 502, war against an attacking neighbor wipes out 40% of their military. And then, in 503, the flood. He left a massive gap in his planning and completely regrets assuming he had more time, because when the flood finally hits, they'll already be running on empty. All the preparation in the world against the 5 major calamities means nothing if they can't survive the opening sequence first: the harvest crisis, the famine, the border disputes, the war damage, and the flood. In his previous life, he was just a child back then, completely oblivious to all of it unfolding around him. Now, staring down this brutal timeline, he's genuinely grateful for the Baron Solis history records. He makes his first move, He walks to his mother's office, nervous, and asks for her help. She lights up. Her son is actually coming to her for something. He stumbles through an explanation, saying that something he's been working on isn't going the way he planned, and he wants to consult with the skilled craftsmen of Estol. He asks permission to go visit their workshops. He feels a little embarrassed playing it this way, but he doesn't have a choice. His mother just smiles and starts arranging everything. A few days later, he gets the green light to go into Estol with 2 conditions. First, he had to behave properly as a noble, and the moment he heard the second condition, memories from his previous life immediately resurfaced. The image of a girl desperately forcing her way through the crowd during his execution. The second condition was simple. The maid standing before him now, Anne, would be accompanying him. A moment later, Takhir and Anne arrive in the bustling heart of the city. Est, the largest city in the Estol region, sitting at the southern tip of the Kingdom of Kair. It's a walled city built around a central plaza, with Takhir's home, the Lord's mansion, sitting on the outskirts. Est runs on a powerful mix of mining, trade, and agriculture, making it the economic engine of the entire region, lively, dynamic, and always moving. As they walk through the streets, Takhir's eyes lock onto a sausage stall. His face lights up. He really wants to try one. But before he can make a move, Anne calls him over nervously. He snaps back to reality and realizes his presence is already causing a stir. The stall owner is freaking out, convinced the young nobleman actually fancies their food. Well, he kind of does. Old habits from his past life die hard. The guy was a serious eater. He apologizes for the commotion and moves on, but the damage is done. The moment word spreads that the Baron's 3rd son stopped by, that stall gets absolutely swarmed with customers. They continue walking, and for a while, neither of them says a word. The silence starts to feel awkward, and Takhir finds himself glancing over at Anne. He knows exactly who she is. Anne is the daughter of House Solis's headmaid, raised under strict servant training since she was young. Her father happened to be a military commander, so self-defense was just part of growing up for her. She's incredibly talented in martial arts, and with a sword, she could take down an average soldier without breaking a sweat. Whether as a maid or a bodyguard, Anne is exceptional. And just a few days ago, on her 15th birthday, she officially graduated from maid apprentice to his personal maid. They walk until they reach Est's central plaza, and Takhir goes quiet for a different reason. This place, he's been here before. In his second life, this was the last place he ever saw Anne, the day of his execution. Back in that timeline, Anne was actually the personal maid and bodyguard of his older brother, Derek. The two of them were both sword experts, and they got along incredibly well. Takhir used to watch them spar together in the courtyard, but when Derek died in battle, Anne transferred to serve his younger sister, Krishia. Then, just 3 years later, an epidemic took Krishia too. By the age of 30, Anne had lost both of the people she served, one after another, and eventually took over as head maid after her own mother also fell to the disease. The grief broke her. She fell into despair and never really climbed out. Takhir surfaces from the memory and blinks. Wait, if he's changed the timeline, then maybe her fate changes too. Anne's voice pulls him back. She tells him to keep moving. He looks at her, dignified, quiet, strikingly beautiful with that bright red hair of hers. And yet, Takhir has never quite known how to act around her. Every time he steps out of line, even slightly, she hits him with this ice-cold roast that cuts straight to the bone. Sharp tongue, zero hesitation. But here's the thing, in his head, those scoldings somehow sound like sarcastic compliments, which honestly makes it worse. Being verbally destroyed that elegantly, brutal. That's exactly why he secretly calls her the Ice Lady. Sure, he knows it's his own fault for misbehaving, and yeah, he trusts her with his life, genuinely. But she still scares him a little. His parents probably assigned her to him specifically to keep him in line. Not long after, they arrive at the workshop. And the manager, Geld, does not roll out the welcome mat. The guy is huge, built like a wall, and Takhir and Anne barely get a moment to react before he's already brushing them off. Takhir tries to introduce himself as the Baron's son, but Geld cuts him off mid-sentence. Too busy. Don't interrupt the work. Anne immediately shoots Geld a look that could freeze fire, but at least they're not kicked out. Geld waves them in. Just don't get in the way. Inside, the workshop is locked in. Every craftsman heads down, focused, mostly doing woodwork. The atmosphere is intense, and it gets even more so when Geld's voice booms across the room, tearing into one of his workers for sloppy output. Anne leans toward Takhir and quietly suggests that maybe this place is too much for him. Takhir, he's fine. More than fine, actually. He's nostalgic. This pressure cooker environment reminds him of his past life grinding away at a black company. Not exactly fond memories, but he's more than used to it. Geld notices. The kid doesn't flinch. That gets him thinking. The next day, Takhir comes back. Geld clearly didn't expect that. He probably figured the young lord would get bored after one visit. Anne, still visibly irritated with the man, doesn't hide it. She may be the ice lady, but this is exactly how she's always had Takhir's back. The workshop mood isn't exactly inviting, but Takhir refuses to give up. He picks out one of the workers and just starts talking to him. The guy isn't warm about it. Behind them, two other workers exchange annoyed glances. Their delivery deadline is coming up fast, and this noble kid is not helping. Geld watches from a distance. The boy just keeps at it, persistent and unbothered. Eventually, Geld calls him over and asks straight up, is he actually interested in woodworking? Takhir knows this is the moment. No casual small talk, no playing it safe. He looks Geld dead in the eye and says there's something he needs to build, no matter what. And when Geld pushes further, asking if woodworking is really the only way to do it, Takhir doesn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely, yes. Geld goes quiet, then turns away. But something shifts. From that day on, Takhir started showing up at the workshop almost every day. He and Geld fall into an easy rhythm. Takhir starts calling him boss, and boss starts talking back. The other craftsmen warm up to the kid too, which is kind of hilarious given that Takhir's mental age is significantly older than he looks. Then, he decides it's time to show them what this has all been about. Geld stares at the blueprint, completely stumped. A round shape. How is he supposed to build this? Takhir explains he needs strong, rot-resistant wood because every attempt he's made on his own has gone sideways. Geld rubs his chin, then calls over a young apprentice named Karl. Fresh, but seriously promising. And just like that, Takhir has his first real collaborator. The next morning, Takhir shouts a cheerful goodbye to his parents and heads back to the workshop. His father is starting to worry a little. His mother, though, thinks they should let him run with it. He almost never asks for anything after all. For the next 3 months, Takhir and Karl are practically inseparable, deep in their own world of blueprints and technical jargon, building something piece by piece. Right as his parents are debating whether this hobby has gone too far, it's done. A model. A bit large for a kid's toy, but it's done. A few days later, Takhir sets up a presentation in the courtyard. His parents are there. He clears his throat, nerves creeping in as he thanks them for making the time. Then, he spots an unexpected face. Raymond, the family's house steward. Young, only in his 20s, but already ranked 3rd in the entire household hierarchy. He's been serving Takhir's mother since before she even married into the family. Charming, competent, with blonde hair, a signature mole under his eye, and a fan club of maids that follows him everywhere. Raymond politely asks if he can join. He's curious about what Takhir has built. Takhir keeps his expression calm. Inside, he's sweating. Here's the thing. In his past life, Takhir never liked Raymond. Every time he came up with an idea, Raymond would methodically pick it apart, point out every flaw, and leave Takhir completely deflated. Sure, Raymond would always end up fixing those ideas and actually making them work, but that didn't make the ego-crushing any less real. The guy was just too perfect, too good at everything. Takhir had always wondered if part of it was just jealousy. But regardless of all that, he knew Raymond was someone he could trust completely. This wasn't part of the plan, but it might be the best thing that could have happened. Slowly, with Anne's help, Takhir pulls back the cloth covering the model. A mid-sized water wheel sits underneath, fitted with a clean, carefully assembled gear mechanism. Takhir knows exactly what he's doing. If he wants to change the course of history, he needs Raymond on his side. And this, right here, right now, is his shot to make that happen. Here's Raymond's honest first impression of Takhir. Creepy child. Ever since he was little, Takhir would stare at Raymond with this strange, guarded look, like he was simultaneously scared and calculating, while deliberately acting clumsy to hide how sharp he actually was. It was suspicious, but at the same time, the boy had this bizarre natural charm that pulled people in, from ordinary townspeople all the way up to high-end merchants. Curious, Raymond made a quiet decision. That apprentice maid, originally assigned to the eldest son, Derek, he redirected her, set her to keep an eye on Takhir instead, and Anne's daily reports were anything but boring. Takhir was secretly engineering something Raymond had never seen before. Something that went so far beyond unusual that it could genuinely save the entire region. Raymond had to see this through. Back at the courtyard presentation, Takhir's father stares at the model, thrown off by how large it actually is. His mother, on the other hand, is already delighted. When they ask what it even is, Takhir calmly explains, it's actually two types of water wheels, a lifting one and a powering one. He breaks it down. The lifting water wheel sits in a current, spins with the flow, and uses that rotation to push water upward, carrying it far beyond its original source. The powering water wheel works on the same principle, but instead of moving water, it drives a rod that pumps up and down. And with a gear system connecting the wheel to the ground, the whole mechanism can move horizontally too. His parents' reactions? His mom is thrilled. His dad is mostly busy trying to keep up with her energy. They're acting exactly like parents at a school science fair, which leaves Takhir a little confused. He needs one more push, so he goes for it. He explains that the lifting water wheel can pump water up a hill, meaning they could finally farm the barren land that had zero water access. His mother goes silent as that sinks in. Takhir keeps the momentum. The powering water wheel? It can replace manual labor entirely. Raymond asks exactly how. Takhir drops it casually. It can automatically grind wheat into flour. Raymond glances at Takhir's parents. Their expressions shift. Everyone in that courtyard understands at the same moment, this is absolutely not a child's toy. Boosting agricultural output and automating labor would send the region's economy into a completely different tier. Right now, all of Estol's granaries are concentrated in one location. If that area collapses, they're finished. This water wheel changes everything. Raymond can't help it. He asks the obvious question, where did a child get knowledge like this? Takhir stumbles for just a second, then says he read it in a book. Some kingdoms out there already use things like this, and he figured if it worked for them, it could work for Kair too. His smile is completely sincere. Raymond doesn't buy the innocence for a second. To him, Takhir looks exactly like someone who already knows a disaster is coming and is desperately racing to stop it. This isn't childlike curiosity. It makes Raymond wonder, does this kid actually have some kind of skill that lets him see the future? Whatever the truth is, one thing is clear. Takhir is carrying a heavy burden entirely on his own. But he's still just a kid. Adults won't always take him seriously. Raymond decides right then, it's his job to back this boy up from the shadows. He opens his mouth and speaks. Takhir visibly tenses. His hands are trembling, but the anxiety drains from his face the moment Raymond says it plainly. They move forward. Optimize the design, start production. His father immediately agrees. His mother is already buzzing about the busy days ahead. With Raymond's backing, all of Takhir's hard work finally pays off, and Takhir makes sure to thank him, genuinely, from the heart. It might be the very first time the two of them have ever been on the same page. In the background, Anne watches the two of them laughing and talking together, and despite herself, a small smile slips onto her lips. The team gets to work the very next day, scouting locations for the water wheel installations. The workshop gets flooded with orders, and just a few months later, deliveries start going out one after another. Takhir's mom and Raymond are deep in managing the new irrigation setup and land development. His father is out pitching the whole operation to early buyers. The arrow has been fired, and Takhir, for the first time, feels genuinely optimistic that he can take on all 5 of the coming disasters. Fast forward a few months, the great harvest is just around the corner. Takhir sits at the dining table staring at a massive spread of food in front of him, and somehow looking at all of it only makes him more fired up. There is absolutely no way he's losing to a stupid famine. Since the water wheel presentation, land development, irrigation, and the new milling facilities have all been moving full speed ahead. But Takhir still has one more move to make before the great harvest hits. He knows exactly what's coming. A massive influx of crops is going to crash wheat prices. His plan: buy low, stockpile as much as possible, then sell high later to fund the fight against future disasters. The problem? Buying that much wheat without looking completely unhinged requires a solid cover story. So he needs a new product. And his secret weapon? Dried noodles. They last practically forever, and all you need to cook them is hot water. He heads to the kitchen to find Miguel, the Baron's head chef, a grizzled veteran with a few battle scars on his face and a history of cooking up incredible meals on the battlefield with almost nothing to work with. After getting injured in war, he accepted Takhir's dad's offer to become head chef, and he's always treated Takhir like family. Takhir shows him the creation, these weird dried sticks of flour, water, and salt. Miguel takes one look and lets out a sigh. Of course, the kid brought something strange again, but old battlefield instincts kick in fast. Miguel immediately sees the potential. If this works, it'd be perfect for military rations. And that's exactly what Takhir was hoping to hear, because Miguel's expertise in field supply is going to be crucial for the bigger goals ahead. The two of them spend weeks in the kitchen, experimenting with salt ratios and drying techniques. Takhir's parents have a strict no-wasting food rule, so every failed batch, he eats it, every single one. After a brutal few weeks of force-fed test runs, they finally crack the perfect recipe, right on time for the great harvest. But then Takhir realizes he forgot something: the seasoning. Their kingdom is landlocked, so things like soy sauce or miso, not happening. He needs a creative solution to make this work, and it hits him. He grabs a bamboo stalk and some kitchen knives. What if the packaging itself could also be the cooking vessel? And just like that, the otherworld cup noodle is born. Conveniently, the southern border of Estall is lined with dense bamboo forests near the demon realm. People constantly cut it down anyway because they think bamboo attracts monsters. Limitless supply, essentially free. The recipe is simple. Step 1. Hollow out a bamboo tube and pack in the dried noodles. Step 2. Add water, drop in Miguel's special seasoning, and heat it over the fire. Step 3. Eat. The flavor is incredible. The noodles are completely soaked in it. Then Takhir pauses. Something feels off about the word soaked. And then the real problem hits him. The noodles expanded so much they're completely jammed inside the tube. A total disaster. Thankfully, Miguel steps in and saves the moment, and somehow the bamboo cup noodle still gets declared a hilarious success. Takhir hums happily to himself afterward, fully convinced he's just found his killer selling point. This could revolutionize wartime logistics and disaster supply chains. His dad is going to be stunned. Then he hears a strange noise from the bamboo container. He opens it. Mold everywhere. The rookie mistake hits him immediately. Fresh green bamboo holds moisture inside, and that moisture is destroying the food. Dried bamboo would be fine for cooking, but everything else he tries just catches fire. Takhir stares into the middle distance with completely dead eyes and jokes to himself that it'd be great if a styrofoam cup could just fall out of the sky right now. He sits with that crushing defeat as the months roll by. And then, the year of the great harvest finally arrives, and with it, the clock on all 5 calamities starts ticking. According to the records of House Solis, the year 499 was supposed to be a year of blessings. Farmers celebrated a massive, overflowing harvest, completely unaware that what they were cheering for was actually a disaster in disguise. One afternoon, 2 farmers working in the fields noticed something on their crops, volcanic ash drifting in from the Griffonia Empire. They hoped it wouldn't get worse, but something about it felt deeply ominous. Time moves fast. Takhir is 6 years old now, and he's been watching the ashfall situation closely. Historically, the ashfall from the Griffonia eruption didn't last long and didn't cause any immediate damage, but Takhir sees it for what it really is, an opportunity, a chance to use the growing sense of crisis to push his proposals through. Anne calls him in for the meeting. He takes a breath and locks in. This year's record-breaking harvest would be followed by a brutal, unprecedented famine next year. If they don't survive that, none of the other calamities even matter. Mass wheat production, land development, portable preserved food, all of it is moving according to plan. But it still isn't enough. They need to prepare on their own, because help isn't coming. Their rapid growth over the last decade has made enemies of neighboring rivals, the Hiorimi and Gorman Viscounties. The tension is thick. And their only ally, the Cornell barony, is too buried in their own harvest to offer anything. Takhir walks into the assembly room, ready to fight. This is nothing like the water wheel presentation. He's 6 years old, sitting at the table with his parents, 2 people who have single-handedly built Estol into what it is today. His mother was a brilliant earth mage who could pinpoint perfect farmlands and mineral veins. His father is a powerful space-time mage with a spatial storage large enough to haul literal truckloads of goods. They built this thriving territory from nothing in a single generation. These are not people to pitch a half-baked idea to. Takhir opens by congratulating his father on the great harvest. His dad just sighs. In this world, a massive harvest isn't a celebration. It's a headache. Taxes are based on land size, not crop yield, so when grain floods the market, prices crash. Farmers lose. Nobles lose. Everyone loses. Takhir steps in right on cue. He tells his father he thinks this harvest might actually be a hidden blessing, and he has 3 proposals to prove it. His father goes skeptical immediately. He can tell the boy is up to something again, but he agrees to listen. Proposal 1. Takhir unveils his instant dried noodles. Anne walks in right on time, carrying the prototype. With wheat prices crashing, he argues it's the perfect moment to buy low and mass-produce a long-lasting food supply as a safety net against future famine. He also pitches it as a next-level military ration. And to sweeten it further, hire the struggling local farmers who are bleeding money from the price crash and give them stable work. His parents exchange a slow nod. He's getting through. Proposal 2. Takhir introduces what he calls an ever-normal granary. The idea, during massive harvests, buy up surplus grain at a fixed, stable price and stockpile it for future food crises. It stops the market from being flooded, keeps prices from collapsing, and protects farmers' income. Raymond immediately picks it up and runs with it, pointing out the full picture. Farmers get a steady income despite the oversupply. The territory builds an emergency grain reserve at no extra cost, and the locals become fiercely loyal to their lord. Takhir is screaming internally. Raymond's assist was perfect. Now the 3rd proposal. The real one, the one everything else has been building toward. Takhir drops it. Small-scale ashfall is often an early warning sign of a massive volcanic eruption. He's read multiple books that support this. Instantly, his father's expression goes cold. His eyes sharpen as he murmurs, "Poor harvest." Takhir explains it carefully. A massive eruption in a neighboring country would devastate their own crops and trigger a catastrophic famine, which means, right now, while prices are at rock bottom, it's their golden window to stockpile grain and get ahead of it. He can't guarantee it will happen, but he believes the odds are high. He can't exactly tell them he's seen the future, so he's betting everything on book theories and logic. The more he explains, the more the anxiety creeps up. He stumbles slightly, rushing to reassure them that even if the famine never comes, this still puts them at the center of a powerful new industry. He's been carrying this fear for years, and standing here now, he can't think of a single more convincing argument. So quietly, desperately, he pleads inside, "Please, just trust me." He closes his eyes, braces for rejection. He's said everything he can say. Then a soft voice calls his name from behind. Before he can react, his mother pulls him into a warm hug, and every last bit of tension melts out of him. She tells him she can see how much he's poured into this, that no matter what comes, they'll face it together. As the two of them hold on to each other, his father speaks up quietly from the side. He says the plans for the afternoon have changed, the meeting is over, and everything is about to move. Hearing his father's words, Takhir knows he actually did it. He finally did something good for his parents, for his family, something that had been weighing on his soul for longer than anyone in that room could possibly know. Because in his past life as Takhir, all he ever did was run. Maybe it was the crushing weight of his overachieving parents and older brother. Maybe it was pure fear of failure. Either way, even though his family gave him everything, he never gave anything back, and then he lost the chance to ever try again. And his life before that? No different. As Nishida Takahiro, an ordinary Japanese salaryman, he lived a quiet, unremarkable life alongside his beloved wife. Childhood bullying had shaped him into a people pleaser who couldn't stand up for himself. So when a coworker stole credit for his work and tanked his career, he just folded. He became a middle-aged shut-in, hiding away reading light novels while his young wife, Yuko, went out and worked to keep them afloat. He kept leaning on her kindness, taking and taking, until one day she collapsed, completely burned out from carrying everything alone. That broke him. He cursed himself. And when Yuko finally woke up from her coma and looked at him, not with anger, but with worry, it shattered something deep inside him. That was the moment he finally woke up. He threw himself back into the workforce, took every brutal job he could find and ground it out until their finances recovered and her smile came back. But after pushing his body past its limits for years, his 50-year-old frame simply gave out. He died of exhaustion and left her behind all over again. Nishida and Takhir were the exact same person, two cowards in two different lives, both terrified of taking that first step, always running instead of standing their ground. In both lives, he only ever moved forward when it was already too late. But not this time. Armed with the regrets and desperate wishes of 2 lifetimes, Takhir makes his decision. He's done running. He'll change, one step at a time. Time moves quickly after that. It's now the autumn of the year 499 in the Kair calendar. Harvest season is almost here. Year 499. The great harvest has finally arrived. Wheat in this world takes a bit longer to mature than in Takhir's old world, but when it comes in, it comes in. The farmers are ecstatic at first, staring at record-breaking crops. Then reality sets in, and that joy flips into panic, as everyone realizes grain prices are about to completely tank. But Takhir's mom and Raymond are already moving. To calm the farmers down, his mother immediately orders the construction of the ever-normal granaries. And the buildings start going up one after another. Then, right as the market crashes exactly as predicted, they make their move. They start buying up grain above market price to stabilize the local economy. High-powered water wheels get installed across the territory to ramp up dried noodle production, and the struggling farmers, the ones who just lost their profits to the price crash, get hired to run the factories. Then a second ashfall hits, and that's all it takes for Takhir's dad to fully lock in. The man sees the opportunity and goes wild. On the surface, he looks like a generous noble buying wheat to prop up the local market. Behind the scenes, he's secretly buying out dirt-cheap grain from neighboring territories with the family name completely hidden. Takhir watches this unfold and thinks, his dad is absolutely flawless. And somehow, before anyone even notices, the man has already lined up a deal to sell emergency rations to the capital's knights. One day, his dad calls him into the office in a suspiciously great mood. He casually mentions that if wheat and dried noodle profits keep climbing, he'll cut Takhir in for 10%. Takhir locks that promise in immediately, so excited that he accidentally reenacts a cringy scene straight out of one of his favorite light novels, leaving his dad completely baffled. Takhir wonders briefly if a feudal lord is supposed to be this gleeful about falling grain prices. But hey, the man plays the part of a respectable noble perfectly in public, so it's fine. Then a light bulb goes off. His dad is heading outside the city for granary inspections, and going outside, that's exactly the opening Takhir needs to set up his third arrow strategy. He asks to tag along. His parents instantly panic. He's 6 years old. It's too dangerous outside. Takhir pleads. His mom asks for a real reason, so he drops the most adult-sounding argument he can muster. Since they technically profited off the farmer's panic, he needs to observe public sentiment firsthand if he ever wants to help his older brother govern the territory properly. Internally, Takhir is pretty proud of himself. No baby talk, just pure professional logic. His mom stares at him, hums, then asks, with a knowing little smirk, if that's really his reason. Takhir freezes. She hasn't said no, but that smile is sending him into a complete spiral. Was his excuse too weak? Did he not sound desperate enough? Does he need to seem more like an actual 6-year-old? Cornered and panicking, Takhir does the only thing left. He throws a mini toddler tantrum. He wants to see the outside world. He wants to see the territory his parents built. And it's not fair that only his big brother gets to go out. Dead silence fills the room. Takhir cringes at his own outburst. Then his mom giggles and says, "Now that sounds more like it." Permission granted, as long as Raymond and Anne are with him at all times. Takhir mentally face palms. He completely overthought it. She just wanted him to act his age. His dad, meanwhile, is not having it, loudly protesting that Takhir is way too young for this. His mom calmly shuts him down, pointing out that he used to sneak Derek outside all the time. His dad keeps rambling. Then his mom turns and gives him a slow, ice-cold stare that practically screams, "Challenge me if you dare." His dad folds instantly. Watching the exchange, Takhir silently nodded to himself. Wise choice, Dad. Very wise choice. And just like that, his very first trip outside the city was officially approved. Right before Takhir heads out, his mom runs over and pulls him into a massive hug. With monsters and bandits being a genuine threat in this world, they pack his escort with extra guards, and since he's 6, the trip is strictly limited to one day, just the 3 closest villages and towns to Est. Takhir doesn't care. He's hyped. He yells a cheerful goodbye to his parents, and they're off. Under Raymond's supervision, the inspections go smoothly, mostly. At the very first village, Takhir's inner adult slips out hard. He takes one look at the granary sitting low to the ground and starts yelling about how a single flood would wipe the whole thing out. Raymond swiftly jumps in, covers for him, and calmly translates his panicked rambling into something the locals can actually work with. Takhir already knows Raymond will quietly bury the memory of that first outburst. Along the way, they also finalize the setup for his third arrow strategy, and the whole trip wraps up without incident. The moment he gets home, Takhir makes his grand reveal. He dramatically pulls out a gorgeous premium quality turnip and waits for applause. His parents stare at it, completely dead inside. His dad slowly turns to his mom and jokes, when exactly did they become farmers? He gives it maybe a week before people start calling him the farmer baron. They don't get it yet, but Takhir has a real plan here. In this world, turnips are treated as nothing more than cheap animal feed, which is, honestly, a massive waste. Turnips are easy to grow, delicious, and even the leaves are edible. The legendary strategist Zhuge Liang grew them to feed entire armies on campaign. If a food crisis hits, turnips could be a lifeline. He gets the operation moving quietly. He has Raymond investigate local growing conditions by going straight to the villagers. The best way to optimize turnip farming is to learn from the people already working the land. Then, he uses his mom to convince his dad to buy turnip seeds from traveling merchants. Miguel gets assigned to develop new recipes. The endgame: bundle all of it into a comprehensive emergency survival kit for the territory, ready to deploy the moment a bad harvest strikes. Wanting to get his hands dirty, Takhir goes out to pull one himself. The root does not cooperate. It launches him clean off his feet and catches him without even blinking. He scrambles upright, notices there's dirt smeared across his face. Anne carefully wipes it off. A little embarrassed, he thanks her. His bodyguard is genuinely too good at this job. He'd half expected her to scold him for doing something so undignified. Instead, she just helps him. No lecture, no sharp tongue, just quiet cooperation. Then he spots his older brother nearby and excitedly waves him over to join the harvest. His brother looks at him, dirt-covered, flushed, holding a turnip, and refuses. Flatly, immediately. Takhir glances down at himself and laughs it off. Yeah, fair enough, but he's done everything he can. The bad harvest could hit at any moment now. He's ready. Year 500 opens with a catastrophe. The history logs of House Solis call it the omen of destruction. A massive dark cloud, triggered by a mountain god, swallows the sky whole. Down in the city of Est, a frightened child stared outside and asked his mother if the sun had disappeared forever. She holds him close and promises that their Lord's blessings will see them through. After a brutal month, the black sky finally clears. People pour into the streets to celebrate seeing sunlight again. Then, they realize the rain isn't coming back. The drought sets in hard. Crops start to wither. Panic ripples through the villages. And that's when Takhir's mother, Kurisu, moves. She's already out in the fields, commanding workers to push the water wheels to full capacity and adjust the water gates to capture every drop of river flow for irrigation, while carefully making sure they don't drain the river dry for their downstream neighbors. Inside her head, she's stunned. This is exactly what her son warned them about. She shakes off the thought and orders Raymond to gather every piece of local intelligence he can find. The situation is critical, but her resolve is ironclad. They do what they have to do, and they survive. It works. Water starts flowing through the fields, and the farmers are literally cheering. Then, Kurisu and Raymond drop another bombshell announcement. Taxes are being cut, and emergency grain from their stockpiles is being distributed immediately. Just like that, the public panic evaporates. Later in the assembly room, Raymond pulls Takhir aside with good news. Things are going so well that some farmers are confident they can ride out the rest of the crisis just by trimming their daily expenses. Raymond tells a visibly stunned Takhir, between their reserves and their food stockpiles, they are genuinely going to make it. Takhir exhales for what feels like the first time in months. He'd been watching the data trend positive, but the fear never really left until right now. They've beaten the worst of it. Raymond isn't done. He adds that Takhir's secret turnip project came through in a big way. They'll cruise through winter with zero supply issues. And through all of this, Raymond gives the credit where it belongs, to the Baron. Takhir's dad flinches at the praise like he's been caught doing something embarrassing. Takhir cheers for him anyway. Not only did they survive the famine, but they turned a massive profit and used their surplus food to earn serious political goodwill with neighboring territories. 2 out of 5 calamities officially cleared. Takhir heads back to his room, completely running on empty now that the adrenaline is gone. A well-deserved nap is calling his name. Then he passes his dad's office and catches a mumble from inside. Something about turnips. Turnip Baron. Something like that. Takhir stops. So that's why his dad had been acting strange all day. Apparently, the nickname had already spread, and people were calling him exactly that. Still, he believed that it was probably not his fault. Probably. By the end of year 500, Takhir is sitting with his head in his hands, asking the universe why any of this is happening. The maids nearby lose it a little. Their young lord's stressed-out pose is apparently adorable. But this is not a cute moment. There's a serious diplomatic crisis brewing. Estol survived the famine, but their relationship with their eastern neighbor, the Gorman Viscounty, has completely collapsed. In the original timeline, the two territories fought over skyrocketing grain prices. This time, Takhir tried to take the high road, offering free grain and cheap turnips as a peace gesture. It blew up in his face. Gorman's arrogant steward rejected everything, calling it disgraceful for nobles to profit from a disaster. Then, they had the nerve to file complaints about water rights, even though Gorman sits upstream and wasn't affected at all. And as if that wasn't enough, their western neighbor, the Hyarimi Viscounty, piled on too, mocking Estol for feeding their people what they called animal feed. Takhir slumps back in his chair, exhausted, the Baron Solis history book clutched in his hands. And then the real weight hits him. Year 506, 5 years from now, the beloved young swordsman of House Solis, his older brother, Darik, is destined to be betrayed by his own allies and left completely alone on the battlefield. The gap in strength between Darik and his enemies isn't even that wide. It's the betrayal that kills him. Takhir only has 5 years before he loses his first family member, and he still has no idea how to stop it. But the timeline doesn't wait for him to figure it out. Early winter, year 501. The cold hits hard and the famine reaches its peak. Starving refugees start pouring into Estol territory, their desperate cries echoing through the streets. And through all of it, Viscount Gorman refuses to cooperate, being so impossibly difficult that even Takhir's parents and Raymond are completely out of options. Takhir genuinely starts wondering if they should just conquer the Gorman Viscounty outright and be done with it. A month later, the refugee crisis gets worse. Takhir bursts into his mother's office mid-crisis, right as she and Raymond are scrambling over the city's deteriorating security situation. Before she can even finish her sentence, he's already in the room shouting that he has a plan. He calls for his father, gathers everyone, and lays it all out. They listen, and their reaction is the same. It's actually a solid idea. His mother gives it an immediate green light. They're moving forward with it. Shortly after, the back alleys of Est fill with clusters of refugees huddled together against the cold. Takhir watches and can't help but think. By rewriting history, he's also creating entirely new problems. The conflict with both Viscounties, this refugee surge, none of this existed in the original timeline. These are his butterflies. And somewhere among the refugees, one man quietly whispered about a place nearby that's actively taking people in. At that moment, Takhir had absolutely no idea that the single biggest death flag of his entire life had already entered Estol. The refugees referred to the hooded man carrying a massive sword by one name, Commander Weiss. Before we keep going, a quick recap. Our protagonist is Solis von Takhir, second son of a noble family ruling a remote corner of the Kair Kingdom. Here's the twist. This is his third life. Life 1, Nishida Takahiro, a Japanese office worker who spiraled into a freeloading NEET, drove his wife into exhaustion, then worked himself to death trying to fix it. Life 2 isekai'd into Takhir, where his entire family, brother, parents, little sister got wiped out by an unstoppable chain of disasters before he lost a war against an invading empire and was executed. Or, well, that's how it should have ended. Right at the moment of his execution, a circle of light erupted around him, and he was reborn, this time with authority and bloodline magic active from birth. That's when both of his past lives came flooding back, including the wife he left behind. Now it's year 501 of the Kair calendar. Takhir is 8 years old, fresh off finishing his lessons for the day and feeling pretty good about it. Nobles in this world typically train until they're about 15, but with 2 lifetimes of experience already in the tank, his morning assignment is basically a formality. He grabs his outerwear, slips out of his room, and heads downstairs. Anne hears his footsteps and already knows he's heading out again, and she's coming with. Takhir's always been the independent type, dressing himself and doing his own thing, which still throws Anne off a little, considering she's literally his personal maid. Before he even reaches the front door, his older brother ambushes him from behind. Darek, fully aware his little brother is about to sneak off again, teases him, calling him Mr. Prodigy for knocking out his work before breakfast is even cold. He jokingly complains that Takhir is just too good at everything and should really think about easing up for everyone else's sake. But here's the thing. Darek isn't exaggerating about his own talent either. At 13, his swordsmanship was already absurd. He hit the battlefield at 14, and by 16, neighboring kingdoms had him on their official threat list. Takhir genuinely looks up to him, but living in the shadow of a golden child older brother isn't easy. He's lost count of how many times the constant comparisons made him feel like dead weight. And, in the original timeline, this brother, strong, brilliant, untouchable, dies in battle 5 years from now. That's a future Takhir refuses to accept. He stares at Darek for a beat too long, lost in thought, which only makes his brother more curious. After a little more back and forth and teasing, Takhir heads out, promising to grab something tasty from the street stalls on his way back. Not long after, he arrives at the special refugee zone in Est. Crowded, sure, but calm. No chaos, no panic, just people quietly being taken care of. Last year, the southern border of Kair got hammered. First, the Griffonia volcanic ash, then a brutal drought. Estal survived the resulting harvest crisis through water wheels, preserved food, and the emergency granary system. However, their two neighboring viscounties weren't so lucky. A severe famine hit them hard, sending a massive wave of starving refugees pouring into Est. While everyone else panicked over the security risk, Takhir refused to just let these people freeze and starve in the streets. Drawing on his modern world knowledge, he pitched a relief plan, and under Raymond's direction, a secure reception zone went up inside the lower city walls. Now, instead of scattering through the streets, the refugees are gathered in one safe, supported space, fed, sheltered, and looked after. The first thing Takhir does when he arrives is head straight to the reception desk. The scene there is orderly, refugees lined up neatly, waiting their turn. A staff member named Claire is running the show, recording each person's name, age, previous occupation, and other details into the registry book. Once everything's logged, each refugee gets a registration token, a critical piece of equipment for camp life and food distribution. Each token carries a unique number tied to that specific person, so there's no swapping or sharing. Job postings line the announcement board nearby. In short, this camp isn't being handed to anyone, it's being built by the refugees' own hands. Claire spots Takhir from across the room and greets him cheerfully, blushing slightly when he compliments her work. But then, things get loud. A group of women working the reception desk suddenly rushes over, dropping to their knees in gratitude, insisting on repaying him, somehow. The commotion blows his cover wide open. The entire camp now knows exactly who proposed all of this. Takhir's a little overwhelmed, but Claire steps in fast to settle everyone down, redirecting their gratitude into hard work instead. She apologizes for the leak. Takhir, meanwhile, quietly regrets letting things get out of hand in the first place. Still, everything at the desk runs smoothly. The newly hired refugees pick things up fast. Claire tells him completely sincere how grateful she is to him and his family for the warmth, the food, and the work opportunities they've been given. Too embarrassed to keep talking, she scurries back to her station. Before she gets too far, Takhir calls out, tells her he'll be counting on her going forward. She beams and agrees. Takhir doesn't waste time. He rolls up his sleeves and gets to work himself. Because this refugee center isn't just charity, it's a critical piece of his survival strategy for the disasters still coming. The system looks complicated on the surface, but it's hiding a second purpose: scouting and recruiting talent. Claire's performance has been so sharp she's already being considered for a management role. And that registration token system, built by Carl, the same craftsman from the workshop, repurposing tech Takhir originally designed for something else entirely. This whole operation, call it the fourth arrow, was never part of the original plan. It just turned into a happy accident. Around this same time, something shifts. Anne, who's always quietly watching over him, has started understanding his fight the same way Raymond does. The constant scolding fades, replaced by something closer to respect, despite the 10-year age gap between them. In Takhir's mind, the Ice Lady nickname no longer exists. She's become one of his most reliable supporters, a genuine ally. But just as things start looking up, drama hits. Viscount Gorman sends an official demand. Every one of his refugees must return immediately. Because of that, House Solis is forced to cut off support for refugees originally from Gorman and Hayorami. They can still stay in the camp and receive food distribution, but the Solis family can no longer offer them jobs. The refugees, though, are already one step ahead. Thanks to a sudden wave of rumors spreading through the camp, not a single one of them listed Gorman as their hometown during registration. And since Takhir has no way to actually verify anyone's identity, he just happily looks the other way. And here's the twist. Those rumors? Takhir started them himself, completely outmaneuvering the corrupt Viscount before he even knew there was a game being played. Everything seems to be going smoothly, too smoothly. A few days later, outside the reception area, Takhir is personally guiding a line of refugees when an unexpected figure approaches him, a cloaked man introducing himself and his group as mercenaries who'd been hired in Gorman territory, bluntly asks if they can get some food. Takhir freezes for a second, not sure how to respond. The cloaked man's frustration spills out. Their contract got terminated, and they got branded as useless mouths to feed. Takhir doesn't hesitate. He can feel the exhaustion in this man's voice, the weight of whatever journey brought them here. He waves them forward, guiding them straight to the reception desk for food. The man's expression softens. He thanks Takhir, genuinely, telling him he owes a debt for this kindness. A few hours later, while Takhir's helping clean up used dishes, the cloaked man finds him again. He's just come from the reception desk, and he's just learned something important. This kid isn't just some helper, he's the feudal lord's son, the one who came up with this entire relief operation. The man drops to one knee immediately, apologizing for his earlier bluntness. He introduces himself properly, Vice Schwarzfalke, leader of a 30-person mercenary group. Takhir greets him warmly and introduces himself in return, no red flags going off yet, until the name starts nagging at him. Black Hawk Weiss. He's heard that name somewhere before. Then Weiss mentions his next move, leaving Estol, heading to the Griffonia Empire to look for new work. And that's when it clicks. Takhir's whole body goes cold. He drops the basket of dishes he's holding. This is that Weiss, Griffonia Empire's Black Hawk, the invincible general of the Northern Expeditionary Corps. 12 years from now, this exact man leads the invasion that crushes the Kair Kingdom and seizes Estol, the same man who carries out Takhir's execution. Back during that execution, Takhir had been too dazed, too disoriented to even register whether Weiss was actually standing there, distracted, of all things, by the man's beard. But now, here he is, standing in front of him, insisting on repaying a debt of kindness, ready to do anything Takhir asks. And in his head, Takhir is screaming one single thought. He cannot let this man walk into Griffonia. This is an emergency, a live, ticking one, and he needs a plan right now. With the appearance of Weiss, Takhir has no choice but to start scrambling to dodge this particular death flag. Known across the Empire as the Black Falcon, this unbeatable genius rose to fame practically overnight, proving himself a master of both statecraft and military strategy. He's the elite commander who almost single-handedly carried the Empire's third prince to victory through a brutal war of succession. Once that prince secured the throne, Weiss received his next assignment, straight from the new emperor: invade the kingdom of Kair. In the original timeline, year 513, a flashback, Takhir, 20 years old, fighting on the front lines as his duty as a noble demands. Everything seems to be holding until scouts come sprinting in with terrifying news. 5,000 imperial soldiers marching out of the demon realm through a narrow mountain pass. Takhir is completely blindsided. The main battle was supposed to be miles away, Turns out, Weiss had pulled off a brilliant, silent flanking maneuver, slipping past the kingdom's defenses entirely to strike directly at the capital. Takhir fights a hopeless battle just to buy enough time for the people of Tegan's settlement to escape. In the end, he trades his own life to guarantee their safety, and that sacrifice leads straight to his execution. That's everything Takhir knows about Weiss from the previous timeline. Now, back in the present, he replays what Weiss just told him. Mistreated in Gorman territory, now trying his luck heading toward the Griffonia Empire. But there's a serious obstacle in the way. Getting from Est to the Empire means cutting through the demon realm, monsters and all. Stopping by Hyorimi isn't an option either. They'd get the same cold treatment there. And, looking at them now, this group is already running on empty, starved and exhausted. In the original timeline, this town had 0 countermeasures in place. No help, no support, nothing. And yet somehow, against everything stacked against them, history shows they still made it to the Empire safely. Takhir actually understands Weiss's anger here. Mistreated, abandoned, losing comrades along the way, that's more than enough motivation to want to burn the world down later. Then a thought stops him cold. Wait, is Gorman the actual root cause of his death flag? This whole chain of problems all traced back to one arrogant vice county? Takhir's frustration spikes, but there's no time to be angry. He's standing in a critical moment right now. If he doesn't stop these mercenaries from reaching the Empire, this could be the exact thing that gets him killed 12 years from now. He starts running through options in his head. Ask his father to formally hire the mercenary group. Pretend to be some kind of prophet warning of a future war with the Empire. Every scenario he simulates falls apart under scrutiny. Nothing convincing, nothing solid. But one thing is certain. He has to act before this group leaves the city. He spends the whole night turning it over. By morning, there's only one option left. He's going to lean fully into being a kid. Takhir makes up his mind. He's going to become Weiss's friend. And so begins Takhir's daily routine, showing up to check on the refugee camp, conveniently spending plenty of time near the mercenaries while he's at it, and tags along as he watches them train and go about their day. After one training session wraps up, Weiss walks over and tells him bluntly, a noble's son wandering around a place like this is asking for trouble. But there's a difference in his tone now. With food and shelter secured, Weiss looks noticeably better than when they first met. Takhir shrugs it off, mentioning his parents already gave him permission to be here. Honestly though, Takhir's been listening closely. Everything about how these mercenaries operate, the strategies they use, it's genuinely fascinating to him, like a free education. So, he starts probing Weiss directly, asking what he's picked up from his reading. Takhir said that the Kingdom of Kair and the Griffonia Empire have been locked in ongoing hostility for years. Playing the curious kid, Takhir slips in the real question. What would happen if the Empire launched a surprise invasion right now? Weiss just laughs it off. The Empire's far too occupied fighting the Sura Duchy to even consider a full-scale invasion of Kair right now. In fact, that's exactly why his group is heading there, just looking for work. Nothing more. Takhir quietly files that away. It lines up perfectly with what he already knows from his past life. This is precisely the war where Weiss makes his name and earns his general's rank. To keep playing the part, Weiss adds that invading Kair would be a logistical nightmare regardless. He rattles off the obstacles: the massive Southern Gate fort guarding the capital, the kingdom's powerful nobility, and an elite Night Order 30,000 strong. Supplying an army over that kind of distance? Impossible for any Imperial commander to manage. Takhir puts on his best wide-eyed, innocent expression, acting like he's hanging on every word. He grabs a stick and starts sketching a rough map in the dirt, narrating a hypothetical war scenario as he draws. Mountains, the southern fort, the route to the capital. Then, with the most harmless smile he can manage, he asks, "What if you faked an attack on the Marquis? A flanking maneuver, basically?" He draws a branching path veering left, straight through the dangerous Demon Realm pass near the Hyorimi border. Weiss's heart skips. Takhir doesn't stop there. He looks up casually and adds that an army could blitz straight through Estel, slip past the Cornell barony, and bypass every fortress and noble house in the kingdom entirely, striking the capital directly. Then he quickly pulls back, laughing it off as just some wild theory from a book he read. He adds that if something like that ever actually happened, their home would become a literal war zone. So honestly, it's a little worrying to even think about. Weiss stares at him, hard, intense. Inside, Takhir was sweating, realizing he had to carefully balance dropping hints without making Weiss too suspicious. Finally, Weiss breaks the silence and asks why Takhir thinks that route would work. Takhir answers simply, "It just seemed like the easiest path to take." Weiss smiles, admitting it's a clever theory, but immediately lists 5 reasons why it would never actually work. 1. An army that size would be its own liability. 2. The Demon Realm Pass is far too narrow. 3. Imperial soldiers don't know the taboos required to cross the Demon Realm safely. 4. The undeveloped roads around here make resupply nearly impossible. And 5. Tied directly to that, coordinating with the main army from that kind of distance would be a logistical disaster. Marching a full army through a roadless demon territory, completely unrealistic. On the surface, Weiss writes the whole idea off as impossible, and on paper, Takhir actually agrees with every single point. Here's the catch. In 12 years, this exact man pulls it off flawlessly. Weiss already knows this terrain inside and out, because it's literally his current escape route. His cavalry is fast enough to blitz straight through the demon realm. He'll have already learned the taboos needed to survive the monsters by then. The roads he'll need? Takhir himself ends up building them, years down the line, with zero idea what he's setting up. And the supply problem solves itself. Weiss's future army simply loots the local harvest as it marches. The Swift Black Falcon, that's the title history gives him. The commander who leads the charge straight into enemy territory. But the final piece of Weiss's eventual victory isn't strategy at all. It's betrayal, courtesy of a man Takhir hasn't even met yet in this life, his true future nemesis. That traitor is the one who actually hands Weiss the win. Takhir shakes off the spiral of dark thoughts and snaps back into innocent kid mode, laughing it off as overthinking. Weiss smiles, agreeing the theory was genuinely eye-opening. Then he drops one more piece of information, almost offhand. If the Empire ever did try something like this, they'd need a secure base to protect their rear first, because if Marquis Hastberg hit them from behind, it'd be a total massacre. Takhir, playing curious, asks where Weiss would personally build that base. Weiss shrugs and answers without hesitation, Tagan Mountain, right on the border, naturally fortified by its elevation, home to a small monster hunting settlement. Then he adds, almost casually, that his own group is actually planning to cross the border through that exact route. Takhir is screaming internally. The precise invasion path from his past life has just been confirmed, laid out right in front of him by the man who's going to use it. He realizes immediately that he can't out-strategize this threat on charm and friendship alone. It's time to call in real backup, time to borrow the brain of the smartest strategist he knows. So, who's this top-tier strategist? None other than the family's own house steward, Raymond. Takhir calls him in for an emergency brainstorming session, practically begging for help, fleshing out a major proposal he needs to pitch to his parents. Raymond agrees without hesitation, but just as Takhir tries to dive straight into business, Anne walks in with tea. Raymond just smiles and reminds him, haste makes waste, forcing the stressed-out kid to actually sit down and breathe for a second. A few calming sips later, Takhir's finally settled enough to talk. Raymond asks for the pitch. 2 proposals, Takhir says. First, the refugee situation. With numbers this large, the current setup just isn't sustainable. And since these refugees already trust House Solis, Takhir suggests officially making them citizens, turning the crisis into a workforce and production boost for the territory. Raymond nods, admitting the government's already leaning that direction too, but asks how exactly Takhir plans to integrate them. Takhir doesn't blink. Taegan Mountain. Launch a major recruitment drive. Build a full settlement there. Raymond can't help but crack a small, genuinely impressed smile. He asks, why Taegun specifically? Feeling like Raymond can already read his mind, Takhir lays it out. Since the refugees come from both Gorman and Hyorimi, Taegun sits in that perfect overlooked middle ground between the two. The high elevation also offers natural protection from bandits and monsters. And on top of that, Takhir pitches a longer-term vision, turning Taegun into a launch pad for expeditions into the demon realm to hunt rare resources. Impressed, Raymond moves to the second proposal. Takhir brings up the mercenary group currently staying in town, the Two-Headed Falcon Group. Since House Solis is responsible for border security, he argues, passing up the chance to recruit a crew this skilled would be a waste. He suggests using their leftover grain profits to hire them on as guards for the new Taegun settlement, strengthening their military and protecting the refugees in one move. Raymond strokes his chin. Hiring 30 elite mercenaries isn't cheap. Is that really all there is to this? Internally, Takhir panics. Raymond is clearly seeing straight through him. He realizes immediately that Anne already filed a full report. Busted, he scrambles to lay out his cost coverage plan. Let the mercenaries keep taking outside jobs for extra income. Then his tone shifts. Serious now. The real ask. He wants Weiss as his personal instructor, a trustworthy genius, both in swordsmanship and military strategy. Raymond nods, agreeing the core proposals are solid enough to bring to Takhir's parents, Darren and Kurisu, but he warns they're not going to be comfortable handing a teaching role to a refugee they've barely vetted, loyalty untested. Then Raymond asks one final question. What's the long-term plan for Taegun? Takhir doesn't hesitate. As the second son, his role is to support his older brother. He wants to personally develop and govern Taegun himself, turn it into both an economic powerhouse and a fortress capable of protecting all of southern Estol. In his head, this isn't just ambition. This is the foundation he needs to actually survive what's coming, and he's not backing down from it. Raymond sees that fire in his eyes, tells him to relax, and promises to handle the rest. The next day, the family gathers in the meeting room, and Takhir's dad, Darren, already looks completely worn down. He looks at his son and sighs. It's just one crazy idea after another with you, isn't it? He admits they have extra cash from the grain profits, but developing an entire mountain settlement is a different financial beast altogether. He even threatens to cancel Takhir's promised 10% bonus. Before he can finish that thought, Kurisu shuts him down cold. She reminds him exactly why they have that extra cash in the first place. Without their son's idea, this entire territory would be starving just like everyone else around them. Darren tries to push back, stammering something about not wanting to provoke the neighboring viscounts. That's when Kurisu hits him with the death stare. She locks eyes with him, telling him flatly that handling politics is literally his job, and it has nothing to do with their kid's proposal. Argument by argument, she completely dismantles his objections until Darren has nothing left to say. Takhir watches his father get demolished and silently prays for his soul, mentally reaffirming the one unbreakable rule of the Solis household: never, ever cross mom. Thoroughly defeated, Darren throws in the towel. He hands the entire project to Raymond and tells him to run with it. But he does draw two lines. Takhir's request to personally govern the new settlement gets put on hold until he turns 15, and his request to have Weiss as a sword instructor? Flat rejection. Takhir's disappointed for about half a second until his dad hands him 50 gold coins as a reward for everything he's contributed so far. For an 8-year-old in a small barony, that's an enormous sum, more than enough to quietly fund his next secret project. And since the core plan, keeping the mercenaries in town, is now safely in Raymond's hands, Takhir mentally chalks this meeting up as a massive win. Right as he's celebrating internally, the doors burst open. Darek crashes the meeting. Both Takhir and their dad stare at him, completely thrown. Darek apologizes for barging in unannounced, but insists this concerns him too. Darren immediately gets a bad feeling, but lets him talk anyway. Darek walks over, stands beside Takhir, takes a breath, and drops his own bombshell. He's formally requesting a personal swordsmanship instructor. Takhir blinks, completely lost on where this is going. Then Darek doesn't hesitate for a second. He declares, full of confidence, that he wants to train under the mercenary commander himself, Weiss. Takhir is speechless. He has absolutely no idea what his brother's cooking, but this is reinforcement he never saw coming. Darren is stunned. He looks between his two sons and demands to know why both of them are suddenly fixated on this one mercenary commander. Darek doesn't mess around. He breaks it down cold and factual. The world's swordsmanship operates on a strict 9-level hierarchy. Everyone knows exactly where they rank. The Solis barony has plenty of captain-level fighters sitting at the veteran tier, but only 2 people have reached swordmaster level, not counting Darren himself. And that's the ceiling. Nobody in their entire territory is stronger than that. Their soldiers are known for their courage, sure, but raw bravery only goes so far when most of them barely know how to properly handle a blade. Darren sighs. He can't argue with a single word of it. Darek keeps going. Those 2 sword masters they do have, buried in paperwork, completely unavailable as mentors. Takhir stands there just staring at his brother in genuine awe. Darek is a flat-out prodigy. Only recently started serious training, and he's already climbed to level 3 swordsman, trading blows with full-grown adults like it's nothing. In the original timeline, Darek became one of the kingdom's youngest sword saints at 16, and here, in this life, he's already showing flashes of that same terrifying potential. Takhir remembered that Darek was also about to awaken rare light attribute bloodline magic. But then Takhir does the math in his head and freezes. His brother is developing 3 years faster than he did in the past life. He barely has time to process that before Darren tries to offer a compromise. He'll have Raymond track down a proper sword expert to train Darek. Darek cuts him off without mercy. "Father, you're being naive. Commander Weiss isn't some regular expert. He's already reached the level of a sword demon, an entire tier above Darren himself." The room goes silent. Darren slumps forward onto the meeting table, completely and comically destroyed by his own son's brutal honesty. After a long, defeated pause, he mutters that he'll look into Weiss's background before making any decisions. Takhir and Darek exchange a look, a quiet, mutual, deeply satisfied smirk. The chaotic meeting finally wraps up. Darren orders a full background check on the mercenary group. If the record comes back clean and Weiss agrees to it, both boys get to train under him. Takhir is genuinely grateful for his brother's perfectly timed intervention, but one question won't leave him alone. What exactly triggered Darek's sudden explosive growth? Fast forward to the future, a confident Darek would eventually confess the truth. He did his absolute best just to keep up after seeing how insanely talented his little brother was. Realizing his own genius had accidentally kicked his brother's motivation into overdrive, Takhir could only regret and mentally apologize for riling him up. 3 months later, we find the brothers at the mercenaries' temporary training grounds just outside Est. Darek looks rough after his workout. Takhir looks like he's been through a natural disaster, shivering, completely drained, barely holding himself together. For the past 3 months, they've been training under Weiss 3 times a week, splitting sessions between this field and the mansion courtyard. Weiss is an absolute demon as an instructor. Darek, though, soaks up every lesson like a sponge and just keeps evolving at a terrifying pace. In 3 months, Darek has already climbed to certified sword expert. Weiss himself openly praises him, stating flat out that common soldiers have 0 chance against him now. When his dad hears the news, his eyes nearly fall out of his head. Darek just smiles shyly and credits his teacher. Takhir, meanwhile, feels like he's been left in the dust and buried under it. Despite training under the same legendary instructor, he's still stuck at the absolute bottom, trainee rank, can't even graduate. He drags himself over to a tree, slumps against it, and stares blankly up at the sky. But then, watching the sunlight filter through the branches, something settles in him. Yeah, his sword skills are genuinely terrible. But that's not the whole picture. The training plan is working. The Tagan settlement is moving exactly on schedule. An advanced team, made up of hired refugees, has already been deployed to start laying the groundwork. The vision: build inns and shops to create a functional base for hunters heading into the demon realm, transforming a wild mountain into a proper living town. The mercenaries are even pitching in on construction during off days. The main crew is set to move in 6 months, with the town officially up and running the year after. And honestly, it's only going this smoothly because Raymond is a logistical genius. On top of that, Weiss handed settlement management off to his vice captain so he could focus entirely on commuting between the training grounds and the mansion to coach the brothers. The Solis family locked in a solid 2-year contract with the mercenaries, renewable annually. Takhir is deep in satisfied strategist mode when a wooden sword appears in front of his face. Darek, ready for another round, no mercy in his eyes. Takhir whines, he begs, he knows exactly how this ends, but inside, he's quietly celebrating the biggest tactical win he's pulled off yet. Weiss is officially secured, the death flag is on hold, and with that crisis contained, Takhir can finally redirect his full focus to what's been looming over everything since the very beginning, the 5 great calamities, and how to stop all of them. A while later, Takhir's study session gets interrupted by exactly the kind of news he's been waiting for. A special package from the workshop has just arrived. He is ecstatic. This is the 5th arrow. Here's the context. Next year, when Takhir turns 9, a brutal border war is destined to devastate the Solis military, 4th of the 5 great calamities, and Takhir has been plotting a countermeasure since he was 5 years old. His answer, a revolutionary long-range weapon, a bow, but not just any bow. It had to clear 3 specific bars. 1, extreme range that keeps soldiers completely out of enemy reach. 2, enough raw stopping power to punch through the Empire's heavy iron cavalry. 3, 0 skill requirement, so anyone, trained or not, could pick it up and use it effectively. For years, Takhir worked alongside the craftsman Karl to completely reinvent local bow making. They layered different woods, metals, and even monster materials to push composite bow designs into a whole new tier. The problem? A bow powerful enough to meet his requirements needed insane physical strength to draw, time to pull from the modern world cheat codes. Drawing on his memories as Nishida, Takhir replicated the 20th century American compound bow, a system of 4 pulleys that dramatically reduces the draw effort while actually increasing arrow velocity. He then mounted the whole thing onto a customized stock for pinpoint accuracy. In short, he just invented a compound crossbow. It took 3 brutal years of trial and error. When the workshop got buried under water wheel orders, Takhir dragged a prototype home and kept going alone, desperately reconstructing vague memories of old internet videos from his past life. Countless nights adjusting string tension, tweaking sizing, pouring every gold coin his father gave him back into the project. If it weren't for the burning need to protect his family, he would have folded long ago. But Karl came through with the final blacksmithing refinements, and the ultimate prototype just rolled out, fresh and complete. Takhir slowly opens the wooden crate, 2 brand new crossbows gleaming inside. He lifts the premium model, built with his full modern engineering, tall enough to reach his chest. He commissioned 2 versions intentionally, a budget-friendly composite bow without pulleys for mass production, and a high-spec beast running the complete 4-pulley compound system for serious firepower. Crossbows aren't unheard of in this world, but they've always had one crippling flaw: reload time. Historically, from ancient Japan to the 100 Years' War in Europe, crossbows consistently lost out to faster weapons. The Kingdom of Kair relies heavily on traditional archery, but mastering a standard bow takes years of dedicated training. The Solis barony runs mostly on militia, regular people, not career soldiers. Teaching them advanced archery? Not realistic, but a crossbow? Lock the string, aim, Pull the trigger. Any farmer, any refugee, any untrained volunteer can use it effectively from day one, and thanks to Raymond keeping the entire R&D operation under airtight secrecy, nobody outside of their inner circle has any idea this thing even exists. The fifth arrow is loaded, and it's about to change everything. 2 days later, Takhir and Darek show up to the mercenaries' training ground with Anne in tow, hollering a cheerful good morning at Weiss. Weiss immediately clocks the massive wrapped package Takhir's hauling around and asks what's inside. Takhir just smiles and pulls the cover off, revealing the custom crossbow. Weiss recognizes what it is instantly, but his expression shifts. The design looks completely bizarre to him. Takhir explains it's a one-of-a-kind prototype, built from various references with Carl's help. Weiss remains visibly skeptical. He knows crossbows, and he knows their reputation in Kair. Terrible reload speeds, widely considered impractical. He's not impressed yet. Takhir hands him the premium compound model and asks him to just take one shot. He looks toward a heavy steel plate sitting far down the range. Weiss raises the weapon, focuses, pulls the trigger. The entire training ground goes quiet. The arrow explodes out of the crossbow and punches straight through the steel plate like it isn't even there. Then Darek and Weiss both just stand there, completely stunned. Weiss literally sprints down the range to inspect the damage, sprints back, and immediately grabs Takhir by the shoulders and starts shaking him, demanding to buy one, or better yet, equip his entire squad with them. Takhir, dizzy and laughing, tells him to calm down. This is currently the only finished prototype in existence. Weiss takes a breath, composes himself, then admits, dead serious, that a shot like that could punch straight through the Graphonia Empire's legendary heavy iron cavalry, their most feared frontline unit. He all but begs Takhir to ask his father about purchasing rights. Before Takhir can even respond, Darek comes sprinting over, furious at being left out, demanding his turn. Takhir barely gets a go-ahead out before Darek snatches the crossbow and starts firing non-stop, completely locked in, refusing to stop until Anne physically steps in and cuts him off. The next day, the Solis family courtyard. Takhir and Darek have pulled everyone together, their parents, Raymond, the whole inner circle, for a top-secret demonstration. Takhir thanks them for coming, announces he has something to show them, and turns to his brother with a smirk. Darek steps forward, compound crossbow in hand. Time to show the family what this thing can really do. Darek takes his position in the center of the Solis courtyard. The moment Takhir gives the signal, he raises the crossbow, takes aim, and fires. The arrow rockets out like a bolt of lightning. Darren, Kurisu, and Raymond all go dead silent, completely shell-shocked. Darek, meanwhile, is jumping around celebrating a perfect bullseye like he just won a tournament. While his brother's busy cheering, Darren stares at the prototype with wide eyes and asks Takhir if this is another one of his book-reading rabbit holes, completely baffled by both the design and the raw force behind it. Takhir casually confirms it and drops the extra detail that Weiss has already personally verified its combat effectiveness against the Graphonia Empire's iron cavalry. That sets Darren off. He erupts, lecturing Takhir for developing a weapon this significant and keeping his own father completely in the dark. But Takhir quickly pushes back, making the key point. With this weapon, even civilians with zero combat experience can effectively defend the territory. Raymond immediately cuts in with the obvious concern: reload speed. Compared to a standard bow in rapid combat, a crossbow's slow reload is a critical weakness. Takhir doesn't flinch. He and Darek already have a fix for that, and they're ready to pitch it right now. With the war just a year out, the countdown is officially on. Darek takes over to break down the tactical picture. Mass production needs to start immediately so the entire army can be equipped before the conflict hits. The Empire's heavy iron cavalry is their worst-case threat. If they charge at full force, The Solis army gets steamrolled. Standard arrows can't even dent that armor, but Takhir's crossbow punches through solid steel like it's nothing, and any rookie can fire it. With the Solis army currently sitting at just 400 soldiers, one weapon could completely flip the odds. Then, Takhir drops the strategic hammer. Total media blackout on the project. No leaks, no hints, full surprise advantage. And in parallel, they secretly train roughly 10% of the entire local population to build a hidden militia from scratch. Darren looks genuinely stunned by the scale of it, and that's exactly the moment Takhir unveils what he's calling the sixth arrow. Here's the breakdown. Realistically, they can recruit around 800 skilled archers. Step 1. Build a public archery range equipped with standard crossbows, and make it completely free and open to everyone, not just soldiers. Turn it into a hobby, a community activity. Then sweeten it further with prizes and rewards for top performers. Darek jumps in to back it up. People will naturally grind their skills chasing those rewards, and without even realizing it, they'll be sharpening themselves into capable marksmen ready for military deployment. Darren still looks skeptical. Will regular commoners actually show up for something like this? The brothers exchange a look. Darek grins and tells his father to just think about how impossible it was to put the crossbow down yesterday, then promises that Takhir's next proposal is going to erase every last bit of doubt he still has. With the hook set, Takhir lays out the full sixth arrow strategy. Step 1. A scoring system where the highest score takes the top spot. Step 2. Monthly tournaments building toward one massive annual championship. Step 3. Serious cash prizes to keep the excitement and the crowds rolling in. And Step 4. The masterstroke. A public betting system. Pick the winner, get a payout. How Solis operates as the bookmaker, takes a cut from every bet, and uses that revenue to fund the prizes, the tournaments, and all the infrastructure. The whole operation runs on itself. A massive territory-wide festival powered entirely by the citizens, driving engagement through the roof. Darek hypes it even further, projecting that this tournament becomes the Solis family's signature event, turning ordinary civilians into a disguised military force wrapped inside pure entertainment and profit. Their father goes completely quiet, staring into space, furiously running the numbers in his head. Takhir just smirks. He can see it. That inner merchant blood in the Baron is starting to boil. While waiting for his dad to finish crunching, Takhir circles back to Raymond's earlier question about the crossbow's firing rate problem. The answer is all about deployment. 2 rows of shooters doubles the output. 3 rows triples it. A single crossbow fires fewer arrows than a trained archer, but a coordinated squad firing in rotation will absolutely eclipse their current archer output. Takhir is pulling this directly from Earth's history. Oda Nobunaga's legendary 3-row volley tactic at the Battle of Nagashino, a rotating firing line purpose-built to stop a cavalry charge cold. Raymond looks genuinely stunned. He points out that Darek is a sword prodigy, but notoriously terrible with a bow, which makes this breakthrough even more significant. Takhir drives it home. If his brother could hit a distant target accurately after a single day of practice, picture an entire army performing at that exact same level. Then he drops the final card with a smirk. Commander Weiss doesn't know a single thing about any of this strategy. That lands like a bomb. Their father freezes completely. The 2 brothers exchange a long, deeply satisfied look. Raymond glances at his lord and chuckles, noting that the kids just completely outmaneuvered him. Darren can only scratch his head. Kurisu is already staring into the void, silently calculating the terrifying budget this is all going to cost. Then Darren snaps out of it and shifts straight into command mode. He fires off orders rapid fire. Raymond, hit the workshop immediately. Begin mass production under total secrecy. Get the weapons distributed to soldiers for training now. The public archery range gets greenlit. Civilians armed with standard non-pulley crossbows, hidden militia building in plain sight. Then he turns to his sons. Takhir is tasked with drafting a full operational report. Range management, betting system, staff hiring, tournament structure, all of it. Darek takes charge of battlefield R&D, testing how the different prototypes perform in real combat conditions, with a strict order to keep everything locked down. And then, the best news of all. The entire project gets fully funded by the territory budget. Takhir and Darek look at each other. High five. The master plan is officially a go. Before wrapping up, Takhir slides in one last idea, and it's a good one. Weiss has been practically begging to get his hands on the new weapon. So instead of charging the mercenaries cash up front, deduct the cost directly from their contract fee. In exchange, the mercenaries stay completely silent about the weapon's existence, field-tested in live combat against monsters, and report back with real performance data for improvements. Once they've mastered it, Weiss's squad becomes the head instructor unit to train the barony's actual army. Darren catches on to the genius of it immediately and greenlights the deal without hesitation. Darek just laughs and teases his little brother about how ridiculously scheming he's become. Takhir responds with nothing but a wry smile. He then invites his parents to take a test shot. As they crowd eagerly around the prototype, Takhir steps back and lets his mind wander over the bigger picture. In the original timeline, they took endless, brutal losses against the Empire's heavy iron cavalry, and turning civilians into soldiers was always a logistical nightmare. Pulling people away from the territory left it completely exposed to bandits and monster raids. But a stationary defense force changes everything. The main army can march out at full strength without leaving the home front wide open. His thoughts get shattered by a loud cheer. His dad just nailed a perfect bullseye on his very first shot. The entire courtyard erupts. Everyone starts crowding around, desperate for their turn. Takhir watches the chaos with a quiet smile. The entertainment value of this plan? Completely foolproof. And if anyone ever questions his betting system down the line, he'll just point them to this exact moment. This is the first step toward something legendary, a future where they march onto the battlefield under a name that will strike terror into their enemies, the Solis Archery Corps. And from this day forward, the weapon that started it all will be known as the Estol bow. A few days later, Takhir and Darek swing by the Est workshop with Anne. The place has visibly expanded. Bigger building, more workers, the whole operation clearly scaled up. Geld spots them immediately, jogs over with a grin, and hollers at the workers to greet the young masters. Takhir cuts straight to business. They're here about the Estol bow, and he has something new to discuss. Geld doesn't waste a second, bellowing for Carl to get over there right now. Takhir tells him not to rush Carl away from his current work, but Geld waves it off completely. Just like the water wheel, he says. Their best business always starts with one of Takhir's ideas. Takhir is genuinely touched. He glances back at Anne, who is nodding along with quiet, unmistakable pride. They move into a secure private room. No prying eyes, no eavesdroppers. Geld asks what they're building this time. Takhir unrolls a large blueprint across the table. It's a crossbow, but mounted with a built-in ammunition box on top. He describes it as a rapid-fire crossbow, while making clear there's no rush on this one. Mass production of the standard models and Estol bows comes first. But here's how it works. Pack arrows into the top magazine, cycle a lever back and forth, and the weapon reloads itself automatically. That same lever motion pulls the string back, and the moment it's fully retracted, it fires. This is the legendary Zhuge crossbow, famously created by the brilliant strategist Zhuge Liang back on Earth. Not a machine gun by any stretch, but significantly faster than a standard bow, with essentially zero downsides. And honestly, a huge part of this is just Takhir's personal passion project. Back in his life as Nishida, he used to obsessively watch Romance of the Three Kingdoms videos just to see this weapon in action. The fact that he gets to actually hold a real one someday, that alone makes Reincarnation worth it. While Takhir's quietly having his inner fanboy moment, Geld and Carl have gone completely silent, faces locked onto the blueprint in deep concentration. Takhir panics slightly and reminds them, relax and keep this strictly confidential. Geld and Carl both look up and smirk. Leave it to us. Takhir stares at them for a moment, genuinely unsure whether they actually registered the warning. Takhir and Darek head over to inspect the Estol bow assembly line. The production process has been completely streamlined for both durability and speed. Complex metal components handled by professional blacksmiths, wooden parts divided efficiently among the local woodworkers. Watching the pace of it, Takhir exhales. They're on track to meet the deadline for next year's border war. Not long after returning home, the first full batch of mass-produced Estol bows rolls out, more than enough to equip the entire mercenary group. Turns out, Weiss had sprinted straight to Darren the very next day after seeing the prototype, locking in their deal before anyone could blink. Now the mercenaries are out in the field, actively testing the bows, feeding back combat data, and drilling the 3-row volley tactic under direct orders from the Baron. The hard deadline is autumn of next year. In the original timeline, the upcoming conflict was a relatively small-scale clash between two marquisates, but it still cost the Solis barony a devastating 40% of their military. This time, Takhir has completely rewritten the board. The Estol bow gives them a concrete counter to the enemy's iron cavalry. Their archer numbers have exploded. The two-headed falcon mercenaries are fighting alongside them under Weiss himself. And on top of all that, Takhir carries the ultimate advantage: future knowledge of exactly how the kingdom's military is supposed to fall apart. But one thing still gnaws at him: the Gorman Viscounty, untrustworthy, unpredictable, and sitting uncomfortably close. He needs one more hidden trump card to neutralize that threat. The opening comes without warning during a routine training session. Takhir notices Darek is off, restless, distracted, not himself. When pressed, Darek opens up and drops a bombshell about his light magic. Something about it that Takhir clearly wasn't expecting, because the moment he hears it, he shouts out in pure disbelief. Then his brain kicks into overdrive. He grabs his brother and says they need to go to Weiss right now. Then immediately stops himself and decides they need to report to their father first. His mind is racing, because what Darek just revealed isn't just interesting, it's a first-time killer, a secret weapon with the potential to guarantee an absolute victory against the Empire's iron cavalry. But before that can unfold, year 502 of the Kair calendar, a lone messenger horse arrives in Est. The countdown hits 0. The declaration of war has been announced. The history logs of House Solis mark this chapter with a grim title: Omens of Ruin. Year 502 of the Kair calendar. Marquis Gott of the Gryphonia Empire launches a full-scale invasion into the Kingdom of Kair. Marquis Hastberg assembles a coalition of neighboring nobles to meet them at the border, but the defense fractures almost immediately. Viscount Hiorimi's army collapses, nearly dragging the entire right flank down with it. The Solis barony ends up completely cut off and fighting alone. They hold the line, but at a brutal cost. 40% of their troops. The kingdom stops the invasion, but the border runs red and the people of Estol are left to mourn. That's the original timeline. Now, summer. A swift messenger arrives from Marquis Hastberg with an urgent directive. The Empire is moving again. Assemble at the southern gate fort and destroy them on the southern plains. The order is clear. The time has finally come. Baron Solis mobilizes everything he has. 550 men total. 215 regular soldiers and 335 conscripts. He leaves a garrison behind and marches out with 400 troops. 200 more than what a typical baron commands, and every one of them a statement of intent. The family gathers at the gate to see them off. Kurisu watches with barely concealed anxiety. Takhir stands before her, doing everything he can to hold himself together. Later, alone during a training break, the weight of it all finally crashes down on the 9-year-old. He wanted to go. He pushed hard to go. His parents shut it down completely. The battlefield is no place for a child. Takhir clenches his fists. He isn't being naive. He knows exactly what war looks like, which is why he fought so hard to get stronger. In the original timeline, 40% of their army dies here. That number hasn't left his head for years, but this time, the board is different. Completely different. They have Weiss, the invincible general, commanding their forces. They have the Estol bow, capable of punching through solid iron armor, and the traditional archer role has been scrapped entirely. Takhir has already drilled Weiss on the Empire's exact tactics and the perfect counters to each one. Every soldier, every cavalryman, every conscript now carries an Estol bow, meaning even untrained fighters can deliver lethal ranged fire without years of practice. And the cavalry upgrade is its own story. 2 years ago, during the height of the famine, other territories were selling or slaughtering their horses just to survive. Darren moved fast, quietly buying up prime military horses under a cover story. Because of that, the two-headed falcon mercenaries are now fully mounted, pushing their cavalry count from under 100 men to well over 200. Takhir has done everything he possibly can, but he's still a child, so he stays behind, gripping his wooden sword, and waits. Behind him, Anne and his mother stand together in silence, watching him, both of them carrying the exact same prayer. Please, let them come home. Meanwhile, at the southern gate plains near the border, the kingdom's forces are assembled and ready. On the far right wing, the Solis barony alliance, under Darren's command. Weiss rides up to deliver his status report. The defensive encampment is finished. Trenches dug, traps set, all of it made possible by the earth mages on loan from Baron Cornell. Weiss also flags some intelligence. The Empire's invasion was actually triggered by a desperate succession struggle within the First Prince's faction. For now, only Marquis Gott has crossed the border. Darren asks the real question: what are their actual odds? Weiss breaks it down cold. Both sides are sitting at roughly 7,000 soldiers. The Empire has locked into a wedge formation, pure heavy offensive pressure. The kingdom plans to counter with a crane wing formation, which looks strong on paper. But Weiss immediately points out the danger. The enemy won't necessarily play along. There's a real possibility they pivot and target the center, Marquis Hastberg's forces directly. The Allied commanders took defensive high ground, which sounds smart, but it stretched the line dangerously thin, leaving massive gaps between the wings. Weiss's prediction: the Empire crushes one wing first, then swings around to flank the center and cut off all retreat. And for the right wing specifically, it gets worse. The Solis forces are positioned right next to Viscount Gorman and Viscount Hyoremy. Two allies they absolutely do not trust, with a full history of bad blood over turnips and refugees to prove it. If the enemy hammers their wing hard, those two viscounts might just pull their lines back on purpose. Revenge served cold, leaving the Solis army completely isolated and surrounded. The Empire's main weapon is Marquis Gott's iron cavalry. A direct frontal clash is instant death. Weiss smiles calmly. That's only true if they're playing fair. They're not. The board has been secretly rigged from the start. Baron Cornell's construction mages on the field. All 400 Solis soldiers armed with Estol bows. A mobile cavalry force of 200. And one more thing. A hidden ace strategy that even their own allies won't see coming. Weiss states it plainly. If they successfully absorb the enemy's vanguard while the brave Viscount Silius flanks from the left wing, victory is as good as theirs. Darren listens to the full breakdown and smiles. He tells Weiss he made the right call appointing him as his battlefield advisor. Weiss responds with quiet humility. The credit goes to Darren's two sons, Takhir especially. The boy was incredibly insistent about it. Darren just smiles to himself. Truth is, from the very beginning, that was exactly what he had planned. Then movement flickers across the plains. Weiss spots it immediately and signals the alert. The enemy is moving. Darren raises his arm. His voice cuts across the entire line. Order all his troops, prepare for battle. And with that, the conflict that future historians will call the Southern Gate Annihilation War officially begins. At the Griffonia Empire's command post, Marquis Gott sits composed on his horse, watching the battlefield with a satisfied smirk. The kingdom's forces took the high ground exactly as he predicted. His officer scoffs beside him. All they care about is hiding up on their hills. Gott gives the order without hesitation. Pin down the kingdom's center and right wing, throw everything at the enemy's right flank with the left, and hold the iron cavalry in reserve until the perfect opening appears. Then, charge in and finish it. The Imperial forces surge forward, crashing hard into the Cornell barony and Viscount Hyoremy's troops, who dig in and fight back with everything they have. Up on the high ground, Weiss watches the collision unfold below him, perfectly calm. Every move is playing out exactly as predicted. He orders his shooters into formation, coordinate by assigned row numbers, hold fire, wait for his signal. Darren backs it up immediately, pushing the order down the command chain. Message is clear. The Empire has identified the weak right wing and is throwing its full weight there while keeping the center pinned down and distracted. The right wing setup is a catastrophe in slow motion. Hyorimi's men are eating the full force of the assault up front. Gorman's troops are lined up directly behind them, and the Solis-Cornell alliance holds position on the high ground at the rear. Weiss reads the sequence. The moment those two Viscounts break, the Iron Cavalry rolls in to hammer the exposed flank. 2,000 Imperial troops bearing down on armies that are already wavering. It's not a matter of if, it's when. It doesn't take long. Hyorimi's line gets absolutely crushed by the charging Imperial cavalry. His soldiers are in full panic, screaming for a retreat order as men fall around them. Hyorimi watches it happen, jaw tight, and clicks his tongue in bitter frustration, completely powerless to stop the collapse. At the Empire's command post, an officer reports to Marquis Gott. The first enemy line folded without even taking out half of the Imperial vanguard. Gott's smirk widens. The second line is putting up a fight, but he's not worried. He orders his troops to surround them and grind them down completely. On the field, Viscount Gorman is absolutely losing it, cursing Hyorimi for collapsing so fast, furious at being left exposed. But fury doesn't change the math. His men are cut off, staring down 2,000 Imperial soldiers with nowhere to go. Panic takes over. He orders his forces to hold formation and begins slowly pulling back. Up on the high ground, a scout sprints in with the report. Hyorimi's line is gone. Gorman is retreating. Darren takes it in, then turns to Weiss. What's the call? Weiss doesn't hesitate. It's time to send the signal. Down on the battlefield, Derek gets into position, ready to move. And miles away at the Solis estate, a page in the family history book begins to faintly glow. Takhir and his mother sit together in tense silence, feeling the weight of the moment, knowing that right now, on that field, the story is being rewritten. Everything has been building to this. The Solis-Cornell alliance, Marquis Hastberg, Marquis Gott of the Griffonia Empire. The real battle begins now. Back on the Empire's side, Marquis Gott is laughing, loud and triumphant, mocking the Solis-Cornell alliance for trying to hold their composure. His officer heaps on the praise, all thanks to His Excellency's brilliance and their elite forces. Gott's done talking. He draws his sword and roars the order. Iron Cavalry, destroy the right wing, breach the rear, and bring me the Marcus's head. Start with that isolated army on the far right. Crush them all. The Iron Cavalry surges forward at full throttle. The Solis forces see them coming, and panic ripples through the ranks instantly. Reinforcements from the center are out of the question. Pulling them means leaving the Marquis completely exposed. There's no safety net, no backup plan. In the middle of the chaos, Darek stands and feels the battlefield shift in real time. Soldiers are shouting at Darren for orders, but Darren doesn't flinch, not even slightly. His unshakable calm steadies the men around him without a single word. Then, he gives the command, firm and measured. Confirm your arrows are loaded, take cover, and hold fire until the signal. Darek knows this is his moment. He steps forward, right out in front of everyone. The soldiers stare, confused about what he's doing. Weiss appears beside him and delivers the instruction quietly. On his mark, aim for the front of the enemy line. Darek freezes for just a second. The battlefield roar fades into a strange, eerie silence inside his head. Everyone is watching. His heartbeat is deafening. Weiss leans in and tells him to calm down, reminding him that they already know how this ends. That's all Darek needs. His fists clench. His eyes lock forward. He extends his right arm as the Iron Cavalry thunders toward them at full speed, closing fast. He's terrified, but the decision is already made. Weiss shouts the command, right side, second target, now. And Darek executes. Every bit of faith he has goes into this moment. Faith in himself and faith in his little brother. So, how exactly did they get here? Let's rewind to a few months before the war. It started with Derek complaining, loudly, about his light magic. His whole argument was that light doesn't hurt anyone. At best, it blinds someone for a split second. For someone who trains in swordsmanship every single day, a skill like that felt completely worthless. He wanted fire, lightning, something that actually hits. As far as he was concerned, throwing light around was a total waste of a bloodline ability. But when Takhir heard the words throwing light, his brain immediately lit up. He asks Darek to show him. Darek sighs, extends his right hand, and an intense burst of light explodes from his palm, washing out everything around them. Darek still looks completely unimpressed, but Takhir is grinning ear to ear. He calls it an incredible skill on the spot and drags his brother straight to their father. Darren doesn't shut it down. By the next training session on the outskirts of Est, they bring Weiss in to evaluate it. Takhir has already briefed him, so both of them are ready. Darek, meanwhile, is barely holding it together, still fully convinced this whole thing is going to amount to nothing. Then, Takhir asks the question that changes everything. What do you think happens if you aim this at galloping horses? Weiss goes completely still. A cavalry unit charging at full speed, suddenly, violently blinded. Horses panic, riders lose control, the entire formation tears itself apart mid-charge. The collateral chaos alone would be catastrophic, and not a single blade would need to be drawn. Weiss looks at Darek with an entirely different expression now. That light magic? It's not a dud, it never was. In the right moment, aimed at the right target, it's one of the most devastating weapons on this battlefield. From that moment on, Darek's real training begins, pushing his light further, hitting targets faster, making every burst sharp and precise, and for the first time, truly understanding what his little brother saw in him. Here's why this matters. Mages are rare and extraordinarily valuable, in the kingdom and the empire alike. Most of them inherit bloodline magic, which means they're high-ranking nobles who almost never set foot on an actual front line. Because of that, no military commander ever builds a battle strategy around the possibility of facing magic, let alone something as exceedingly rare as light. It simply doesn't factor into anyone's calculations. That's exactly what makes it lethal. Darek finally gets it, but turning the plan into reality hits an immediate wall. When he presents the magic and the battle strategy to his father, Darren refuses on the spot. Darek is not joining the military. Darek pushes back, demanding to know why his parents are holding him back, but Darren doesn't budge. His son's day on the battlefield will come, but not yet. He's too young. Takhir jumps in, making the case for how critical Darek's light magic is against the Empire's iron cavalry. Darren shuts him down just as fast. Then Kurisu steps forward. She kneels in front of Darek, acknowledges every bit of hard work he's put in, and begs him not to go somewhere so dangerous at just 12 years old. Seeing his mother kneel like that leaves Darek completely speechless. The tension hangs heavy in the air. Darren tells Kurisu to stop, warning that giving in to a child's stubbornness will only make things worse. But before he can even finish, Darek suddenly shouts back. The room freezes, and in that silence, Darek finally confronts what's actually been eating at him. He admits it. He was jealous of Takhir. As the older brother, it stung every time Takhir was the one being praised. But that jealousy started changing when he watched his little brother work. Night after night, buried in books, pushing himself relentlessly towards something. Seeing that made Darek ask himself hard questions. What was Takhir actually fighting for? Why did he feel so envious? Why couldn't he shake this frustration that sometimes brought him to tears just watching from a distance? He wanted that same sense of purpose, that same drive. His voice cracks as he looks at his mother and says it plainly. This isn't stubbornness. He just wants to protect everyone too. That same raw, unshakable determination carries forward straight to this battlefield right now. Darek's light magic ignites in his grip, and then it explodes. A burst overhead like a miniature sun, flooding the entire field with blinding white light. The iron cavalry takes the full force of it. Horses panic instantly, vision gone, losing all sense of direction, and they plunge blindly straight into the shallow trenches the Solis forces had prepared in advance. Weiss watches it unfold with a cold smirk. Under normal conditions, small bumps and shallow trenches are trivial obstacles for a cavalry unit. But flying blind at a full charge? They're death traps. Before he even finishes the thought, the Solis soldiers erupt around him, watching in pure disbelief as the unstoppable iron cavalry collapses one after another, brought down not by superior numbers or brute force, but by one 12-year-old. The battlefield roars, and for the very first time, Darek feels what it's like to be the one they're cheering for. Over at Marquis Habsburg's command post, an officer bursts in with urgent news. Baron Solis was prepared, and something catastrophic has happened to the Iron Cavalry. Habsburg just smiles. Meanwhile, over on Viscount Hieronymi's side, the Viscount stands in complete, stunned silence. But at Marquis Gott's headquarters, pure rage. A third of his Iron Cavalry gone. Gott screams at his men, refusing to believe it. Their strongest unit, crippled like this? Impossible. He won't accept it. Back with the Solis forces, Weiss turns to Darek and tells him, "Outstanding." Darek is still overwhelmed, eyes glistening, barely holding it together. Then Darren steps up beside his son and quietly pats him on the head. "You did great. Leave the rest to us." With only 2/3 of the enemy cavalry still standing, Darren wastes no time. He orders a full barrage of long-range suppressive fire. Darek can't contain it anymore. He jumps, pure, unfiltered joy breaking through everything else. This moment marks the beginning of a legend. Darek, eldest son of House Solis, would go on to become a sword saint known across the kingdom as the Swordsman of Light. But it all started right here, with one blinding flash that stopped the Empire's finest force cold, breaking them before they could even mount a real attack. Darek tilts his head back and looks up at the open sky, a quiet smile on his face. A silent message sent straight to his little brother. "I gave it everything I had." Back at the Solis mansion, Raymond opens the first regular meeting of the Flood Prevention Committee. Takhir is already deep in thought before it even starts. His father and brother have barely been gone, and he refuses to spend that time just waiting. Before they left, he consulted his parents and got the committee officially formed. His reasoning? Old records show that severe flooding often follows years after a prolonged drought. Luckily, his parents took the warning seriously. His train of thought gets interrupted when his 7-year-old little sister, Krishya, wanders in, clutching her teddy bear and tugging on their mother's sleeve. Their mother gently reminds her, didn't she promise to sit quietly and play during the meeting? The only reason Krishya is even in the room is because she refused point blank to be separated from her mother. Non-negotiable, apparently. Not fully grasping the situation, Krishya pouts and makes a beeline for the other side of the table, announcing she'll just go play with Sarah instead. Their mother tries to explain that Sarah is here as an observer with an important role, but that explanation goes completely over Krishya's head. Sarah, for context, is from a branch family of the Cornell barony, sent by Takhir's maternal uncle to assist his mother. She's an earth magic user, the only other one in the territory besides Kurisu herself, and her support has been invaluable. The Cornell and Solis families are close, and her presence here is a sign of genuine goodwill. With everyone settled, Raymond gets right into it. He reads out the preliminary investigation results. Old documents turned up nothing on flooding after droughts, but the interviews with village elders near Mars, dispatched on Takhir's request, revealed something critical. Every 50 to 100 years, Mars gets hit with torrential rains and floods powerful enough to destroy embankments entirely. Raymond continues, once those embankments fail, catastrophic muddy floodwaters swallow everything in their path. But because there hasn't been a major flood in over 20 years, most people have simply forgotten the danger exists. All that remains is an old legend, passed down quietly by the elders. Be careful of the water after a severe drought. Raymond asks if Takhir thinks they should take the legend seriously. Takhir says yes. It lines up with something he read in an old history book. Internally, of course, he knows this comes directly from the future records of House Solis. But he's genuinely grateful the village elders gave his warning the credibility it needed. The real danger zone is the west side of Estol, where the massive Org River runs. Its banks hold the territory's most productive grain fields, the economic lifeblood of the entire region. The town of Mars sits right next to it, but it only became a major grain hub in the last decade following his parents' development work. which means the local governors have zero knowledge of the ancient flood cycle the elders described. Raymond adds another problem. Small rivers throughout Estol overflow every single year, but since the damage is usually minor, local officials never bother reporting it. Going forward, they'll increase vigilance and put all surrounding villages under active monitoring. Kurisu thanks Raymond for the thorough work and shares that she's already reached out to her brother about securing additional earth mages. Once the war ends, they can bring them in to construct proper embankments. Raymond underscores the stakes. If the legend is accurate and a once-in-a-century flood hits Mars, the damage will dwarf everything the drought caused. This is a disaster they cannot afford to let happen. The room settles into heavy collective resolve, and across the table, little Cretia looks around at all the serious faces and starts mimicking their expressions with full commitment, teddy bear still in hand. Takhir stays dead serious as the meeting continues, his mind already on what's coming next year. He knows exactly what happens. Next summer, relentless heavy rains cause the Org River to overflow and tear through the embankments. In a single night, catastrophic floodwaters swallow Mars and the surrounding villages. Lives lost, grain fields buried under unrecoverable mud. In the original timeline, drought had already wiped out the rest of the territory's crops. Mars survived because its lower elevation made irrigation easy, keeping it as the region's sole lifeline during the famine. So, when the flood took that lifeline out, it was a fatal blow. This time around, Takhir's water wheel development has expanded farming across other areas, so they're no longer completely dependent on Mars. But Mars and its surrounding fields still produce a fifth of their total grain yield, and now it also houses the water wheel-powered mills. If Mars floods now, the damage will actually be worse than in the original history. Kurisu pulls the meeting back on track and asks Raymond for their current countermeasures. And Raymond delivers. Minor flooding around Mars has already been addressed. Waterways inspected, water gates reinforced, and embankment prep underway. Since moving the heavy mills isn't realistic, they're relocating the grain storage hub to higher ground instead. Waterways across all other areas are being checked, and soil is being stockpiled to shore up weak ground. Takhir listens and quietly short-circuits. Is Raymond actually more overpowered than a guy who came back from the future? He's starting to feel a little outclassed in his own plan. Raymond continues. Actual construction has to wait until the army returns, and even then, they're uncertain about the scale of embankment needed to actually hold, which means balancing safety against a tight budget with no clear answer yet. Takhir asks a targeted question. What effect would a flood have on the neighboring Gorman-Vai County? Raymond explains that the land across the Org River from Mars sits uphill, so overflow in that direction is unlikely under normal circumstances. Takhir relaxes slightly, relieved he won't have to deal with that insufferable steward again. Then Raymond drops the bombshell. Gorman recently dug a new waterway directly from the river basin and installed their own water wheels. Takhir's jaw drops. They spent years filing complaints and causing problems, and then turned around and quietly copied his ideas wholesale. He practically wants to charge them royalties. Raymond adds that the Gorman territory built their own lifting water wheels after the drought to channel water, but they break down constantly, making their overall efficiency terrible. Takhir isn't surprised. Copying complex machinery without understanding the underlying gear mechanics was always going to fail. Even he had to layer light novel knowledge on top of endless trial and error, leaning heavily on skilled craftsmen just to get it working properly. Then, the dots connect. Takhir's expression shifts. He asks, does this mean a flood could actually trigger upstream in the Gorman-Vai County instead? Raymond confirms it's very likely. Gorman deliberately demolished sections of natural embankment to dig their makeshift waterways, and now those gaps are a massive liability. Takhir puts his face in his hands. If disaster hits the Gorman territory now, they have absolutely no one to blame but themselves. While Takhir groans over Gorman's self-inflicted disaster, little Cretia pipes up from across the table, trying to get his attention. He brushes her off until she asks one completely innocent question that stops him cold. If the water can't flow in either direction, where does it go? Takhir freezes. He's been so laser-focused on saving Mars that he never once stopped to think about where all that diverted water actually ends up. If it pushes further downstream, it doesn't just hit Est, it buries multiple villages along the way before wiping out the Hyorimi Viscounty entirely. He might have unconsciously been ignoring the full scale of this disaster this whole time. Panic starts creeping in fast. Then, Raymond steps in, completely calm, and genuinely praises Krishia for the sharp observation. The little girl lights up with pride. Raymond reassures the room. He's already investigating downstream risks and compiling a priority list of areas that need protection. Raymond saves the day. Again, Kurisu takes stock of the expanded threat and notes they'll need significantly more Earth mages than originally planned, already imagining her brother's face when he gets that request. She instructs Sarah to relay the message, and Sarah agrees without hesitation. Takhir, still a little unsettled, stammers a question about whether they should warn Viscount Gorman and Viscount Hyorimi, but Raymond anticipates it before he even finishes the sentence. He'll inform both lords that based on ancient records, the Estol territory will be reinforcing its embankments as a precaution against potential summer flooding. Takhir exhales, genuinely relieved, and thanks him. Raymond closes the first regular meeting with a reminder: summer is coming faster than it feels, and time is tight. Starting next meeting, Darren and Derek will be back to help work out the specific tactical plans. The race to stop the Great Flood of Estol has officially begun, and one look at Takhir's eyes makes it clear he's not stopping until it's done. A few days after the meeting, Anne bursts into Takhir's room. A horse messenger from the fort just arrived. Takhir is on his feet immediately. He and Kurisu rush outside, where the messenger is already kneeling at the entrance. The air goes tense. Little Krishia peeks nervously from behind the door as Takhir fights to keep his expression steady. The messenger unrolls the report and delivers the news. Marquis Hastberg's forces at the Southern Gate Fort engaged Marquis Gott's Imperial Army, and their side has achieved a total victory. Kurisu's tears fall before the messenger even finishes the sentence. The report continues. Thanks to the Baron Solis army, the enemy's iron cavalry was completely destroyed. Darek made massive contributions in his very first battle, and the barony's army, 0 casualties, just a few wounded soldiers, that's it. Kurisu drops to her knees, weeping, pure, uncontrollable relief pouring out of her. Takhir and Krishia rush to her side. Takhir wraps an arm around her, though internally he's already laughing a little, because he knows his father is absolutely going to sulk when he realizes his wife cried exclusively over Darek. But none of that matters right now. Darren and Darek are coming home safe. That's everything. The news spreads through Est like wildfire. The townspeople erupt. Families and loved ones of the soldiers breathe again for the first time in months. Food flows, drinks flow. Every town and village across the territory joins the celebration. And just like that, the fourth of the 5 great calamities, the war damage, has been officially prevented. A month after the legendary victory at the Southern Gate Plains, Darren and Darek finally walk through the mansion doors. Darek is already grinning from ear to ear, announcing his return with full theatrical energy. Kurisu comes rushing out and completely walks past her husband's open arms to throw herself around her eldest son instead. Darren and Takhir exchange a look. Darren sighs, but seeing the sheer relief on his wife's face, he can't really argue with it. Little Krishia barrels in a moment later, and just like that, the family is whole again. It doesn't take long before Darek starts showing off. He tells Takhir he can go ahead and address him as Baronet Solis now. Takhir plays along without missing a beat, dropping to one knee with a dramatic bow. The new baronet looks extremely pleased with himself. Here's what went down after the battle. Darren, Darek, and the barony's army marched straight to the capital to receive their official commendations. Darek was recognized for deploying his rare light magic to throw the entire enemy formation into chaos, a move that single-handedly turned the tide of battle. His reward, 500 gold gold coins, and the title of baronet. He won't even have to wait to inherit his father's title. He's already a ranked noble at 12 years old, with an annual royal stipend to go with it. Takhir feels a wave of jealousy he can't quite suppress. Sure, a baronetcy only lasts one generation, comes with no land, and can't be passed down, but it still makes Darek the head of his own noble branch. At 12, his brother has become an overnight legend, the young hero who led his allies to victory. He's already surpassed what he accomplished in the original timeline. Takhir shakes it off and asks for the full story. How did the strategy actually play out? What was the battlefield really like? Darek, now leaning fully into his upgraded status, puts on an air of playful arrogance that looks almost exactly like their father. But beneath the teasing, the pride is completely genuine. He reenacts the moment with full enthusiasm, his light magic detonating across the Iron Cavalry, throwing them into total chaos right before Weiss gave the signal and Darren issued the final order to strike. Darek's expression shifts into something more serious as he walks Takhir through the rest of it. Right after the light magic hit, they immediately launched into their targeted attack zones. Darren took command instantly, ordering his men to aim for Zone 2 on the right and open fire. Hundreds of arrows from Estol bows rained down on the remaining Iron Cavalry in a coordinated wave. The enemy couldn't believe it. Arrows piercing clean through heavy armor from that distance? Their commander panicked and ordered a temporary retreat to regroup outside firing range. From the high ground, Weiss watched them pull back and read it immediately. They were reorganizing for another charge. The enemy commander steadied his men, pointing out there were only 600 troops on that hill, and ordered them to wipe out every archer up there. Fatal miscalculation. Before they could even finish forming up, another wave of arrows was already falling on them. The speed was incomprehensible. How were they firing again so fast? Up on the hill, Darren was quietly chuckling. The 3-row volley technique was performing even better than they'd anticipated. With the Iron Cavalry crippled and reeling, Weiss made his move. He told Darren it was time for the cavalry charge. Darren gave the green light. Weiss shifted into full war mode, rallied his mounted forces, and led them straight into the chaos below. The combination of both secret tactics hit simultaneously, and what was left of the enemy lines simply collapsed. Across the field, Marquis Gott sat on his horse, trembling. His 2,000-strong Iron Cavalry, his most feared weapon, had been completely wiped out. The kingdom's alliance felt the shift instantly. Morale exploded. They seized the momentum and didn't let go. The battle didn't last much longer after that. A flustered, cornered Marcus Gott had no choice but to retreat, and the kingdom's army chased them all the way back to the border, hammering their rear the entire way. Takhir listens to all of it and offers his congratulations. He notes the final numbers. Gott lost roughly half of his 7,000-man army, and his elite Iron Cavalry was effectively destroyed, with 90% killed or wounded. Internally, Takhir is barely containing his relief. In the original timeline, the Solis barony lost nearly 40% of its own forces in this exact conflict. This time, almost zero casualties, while completely dismantling the enemy. The absolute best outcome imaginable. Darek breaks his train of thought, looking at him genuinely. He says it plainly. None of it would have worked without Takhir's strategy. Takhir smiles back, and none of it would have worked without Darek's light magic. Darek grins, fully satisfied, and immediately pivots, eyes lighting up with new energy. He's got more to tell. The award ceremony details are coming, and he is very ready to spill everything. Takhir asks about the trip to the capital, curious how the award ceremony actually went. Darek explains that while Marcus Hastberg received most of the overall recognition, the real shocker came when the official combat rankings were announced. Out of every unit on that battlefield, the Solis barony's army was declared the single biggest combat contributor. Darek throws his arms wide for full dramatic effect. 8,000 gold coins. Wiping out Marcus Gott's elite Iron Cavalry carried that much weight, and apparently their father couldn't stop smiling the entire ride home. Second place went to their uncle, Baron Cornell, whose strategic encampments were instrumental in neutralizing the cavalry charge. Third went to Viscount Kilius, who read the opening perfectly and charged in at the right moment. Darren personally vouched for Baron Cornell's contribution, making sure his role in the victory was properly recognized. Their uncle and his soldiers were thrilled, and Takhir is quietly delighted, knowing that every critic who ever called them the wallflowers of the battlefield will finally have to sit down and be quiet. Takhir munches on a snack, turning the numbers over in his head. Since this was a defensive war, receiving gold rather than new territory is actually the better outcome, far more useful for developing what they already have. Then, Darek drops another detail. Marquis Hastberg assigned the Solis-Cornell alliance to handle battlefield cleanup. Takhir blinks. Darek explains, "You can't just leave thousands of fallen soldiers and horses rotting on a field. Disease, monsters, it becomes a disaster in its own right. The recovered weapons and war horses went to the Marquis first for distribution, of course. But since the Solis and Cornell families are responsible for maintaining the regional highways, they were given priority pick of the spoils. Final haul, roughly 250 war horses, plus enough armor and weapons to equip 1,000 troops." Takhir stares. That loot count actually exceeds the size of the army they deployed. Darek adds that some of the equipment took damage, dented, crushed, but they plan to restore what they can and sell the unsalvageable material to blacksmiths as scrap. Takhir slumps slightly at that. Darek notices immediately and asks what's wrong, but Takhir waves it off. Internally, his modern Japanese sensibilities are having a hard time with the idea of reusing gear stripped from fallen soldiers. Rationally, he knows wasting valuable supplies in a medieval world isn't an option, but it still sits uncomfortably. He pushes past it. Between the 8,000 gold coins and the massive spoils haul, the Solis barony's financial situation just jumped to a completely different level. Takhir's mind drifts to his long-term plans beyond the seventh arrow, and a slow, scheming smile starts creeping across his face as he runs the numbers on what they could actually pull off with this kind of funding. Darek catches the look immediately and calls him out, asking what exactly he's plotting over there. Takhir forces a laugh and makes a mental note. Poker face. He really needs to work on his poker face. In the wake of the victory, the Solis barony's military gets a complete overhaul. 200 new heavy cavalry raiders, 100 regular cavalry with 200 spare war horses, 350 archers, 50 mercenary riders from the two-headed falcon group. The surge in recruitment pulls in a wave of local militia members who officially join the standing army. And here's the defining shift. Every single member of the standing army is now fully mounted. An all-cavalry force means dramatically improved mobility, armor-piercing capability, and tactical flexibility that foot soldiers simply can't match. To keep the momentum going, Darren allocates 2,000 gold coins to extend Weiss's contract and bring in even more mercenaries. Meanwhile, the Estolbo stays under complete lockdown. Even Baron Cornell is asked to keep quiet about its existence. Right after the battle, every Estolbo gets quietly loaded onto wagons and shipped back to Est, while the troops heading to the capital are re-equipped with upgraded standard crossbows. Nobody outside their inner circle knows what actually turned the tide of that battle. Step by step, the Solis barony is building something far beyond what any typical barony should be capable of commanding. That night, Takhir lies in bed, letting it all sink in. When he really thinks about it, every catastrophe that was supposed to destroy them ended up being a stepping stone instead. The harvest crisis made them a fortune through smart speculation. Water wheels boosted productivity across the board. Industrializing wheat flour raised the entire territory's income. The ever-normal granary, irrigation systems, and flood control turned them into a territory that can weather almost anything. Taking in refugees massively expanded their workforce, and Weiss, the man who was supposed to be their most dangerous enemy, became their strongest ally. Even the war, which should have crippled them, ended in a historic victory that left them richer and militarily stronger than before. A slow, satisfied smile spreads across Takhir's face. This is the definition of turning misfortune into fortune. Flood countermeasures are progressing smoothly. The foundation to survive all 5 calamities is solidifying piece by piece. He clenches his fist quietly in the dark. Everything is going well, better than expected even. But here's the thing. Takhir doesn't fully understand yet what the irony of fate actually means. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. By rewriting history, an entirely new future is taking shape around him. And somewhere in that new future, unknown enemies and unforeseen disasters are already waiting. Ones that no history book can warn him about.